Okay, thank you. All right, thank you very much. So we've just come out of a council session, a closed council session, and we rose from this meeting at 5:07. During this session, direction to staff was provided regarding a potential property disposition matter in Ward 1. So I'm calling the meeting back to order. Now, Mr. DeVos from Spreed Associates is coming, but he is not here right now. So we're going to come back to him when he's able to get on. And then, so we have to skip that. Oh, here it is. The next item is 5.2, which is the South Central Ontario Regional Economic Development Corporation update. I've just been notified that the presenter cannot attend tonight, and we've decided to defer that item, and we'll put it on the agenda when we can have that presentation. So the next item is the adoption of the minutes. We have two sets of minutes, one from November 10th and one from the 17th. Yeah. Okay, so we're going to move those together. So the motion before us is that the minutes of Middlesex Centre Council held on November 10th, as well as November 17th, 2021 be adopted as printed. Could I have a mover, please, and a seconder? Councillor Cates and Councillor Heffernan, all in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. And now we can move to the consent agenda. Yep.
We just need to pause for about 1 minute to allow staff to get onto the call and to begin this meeting. So we've gone so quickly through the first couple items that staff are still attempting to join up.
Okay, we can breathe for a moment.
We need to pause for 1 moment, everyone.
Yeah, bear with us and we'll be right back.
Yeah. We should have staff joining us shortly.
Looking at the consent agenda, and typically these items are the ones that are received as one motion, though council members may request that one or more item be removed for further discussion. So, Councillor Cates.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I'm asking if we can pull 7.2, the write-off of the taxes, and I ask for it to be deferred.
Just for some clarity there, Councillor Cates, are you asking for a motion for deferral at this time?
Yes, please.
Okay, thank you. A seconder would be required to move forward at this time.
No hands? Then that motion is denied. Is there other question or concern about any of the other items? Yes, go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
Just to confirm 7.2, this is strictly a write-off of taxes.
Right.
In municipality, we're simply looking at writing off the taxes. We're not here to validate who owns the property. We're here to simply discuss whether to write off the taxes that are owed on that. Ownership is another issue, and the municipality is not involved in that. So I just want to make that clear what we're doing.
Okay, thank you for that. Does anyone else have anything on any of the consent items? Seeing none, then there is a motion before us. Sorry.
So sorry, through the chair, we do need to deal with this item that's been pulled separately for this motion before considering the other consent agenda items. So as item 7.2 has been pulled from the agenda, we've heard a proposal for a motion. No seconder was obtained. we will need to consider this motion separately now. So we'd be looking for a mover to move item 7.2 before we move to the remaining of the consent agenda items. Thank you.
Yes, so the motion as printed stands. Could I have a mover and seconder, please? Deputy Mayor Brennan and Councillor Shipley, all in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. And then we do that one separately. Yes, so now the motion before us that consent agenda items 7.1 as well as 7.3 to 7.7 are adopted as recommended in the document. Councillor Arts and Councillor Cates, all in favor? And that is carried. Okay, thank you very much. Sorry for the confusion there. Now we can move to item 8.1. This is a long one though. Do we start this one without having done Mr. DeVos's presentation, or should we take another one and come back to the budget?
I'm unable to confirm Mr. DeVos's status at this time, so we'll have to move forward with the capital budget.
Okay, so 8.1 is the capital budget presentation. Tiffany Farrell, who is our Director of Corporate Services, is going to provide opening remarks, and she's going to lead us through the document. Various members of the management team are going to be joining her to speak to sections. All of us here in at the Horseshoe will have an opportunity to ask questions several times throughout. So maybe just jot down if you've got something you want to raise, and we'll get our chance to ask questions. So I see Tiffany's name is there.
Can everyone hear me okay?
We can hear you, but we can't see you.
Yeah, it's my video is being controlled by the host.
Okay.
So I'm just waiting. I'll wait for that.
Okay.
I don't think I can control that. And then all the directors would be joining as well.
Okay. We can hear
Yeah,
Yeah, we can hear you, Tiffany. You just get started. There's we have our screens and information all here. So if you'd like to get started, then go ahead.
Okay. Okay, perfect. So everyone has the presentation in front of them?
Good.
So at this time, I can't share my screen either, or I can, let me see, just one moment.
Yep. Maybe just say next page, or, oh no, we can see your screen, so you can go ahead.
So now you can see it? That's great.
Yep, it's all there.
Okay, perfect. So good night, everybody. So it's really great to be here to discuss our 2022 capital budget. And so we'll get started right now. So first, just the agenda for tonight. So we're going to talk about the municipal budget introduction, some highlights from our 2022 capital budget, and the information and funding will come up at the end. I won't go into too much detail when we're talking about what is a budget. This is something that we've discussed year over year, and I know our council members are quite familiar with it. But overall, the budget is a key planning document in achieving the municipality's strategic priorities. And this process starts very early for Middlesex Centre. So as you can see, our budget development, the entire roadmap is outlined in front of you. So although we start planning in July to September, we actually start even earlier than that. It starts at the beginning of every year as we're going through the newest budget. And so this entire process is followed each year, and there's a few things I'd like to highlight in that process that are really important to Middlesex Centre. One is the engagement aspect. We like to involve as many people as possible in our budget, as this is a community's budget, and hearing from everyone is always so important for us. We also like to include 2 members of council. This year we had Councillor Shipley and Councillor Arts. They will be presenting on their experiences on the December 8th meeting. So we won't ask them to do that tonight, but they will be part of our December 8th presentation. And then the budget is being built, taking into consideration the viewpoints of many of our residents through any of the engagement channels that we do, as well as our council members and different members of our staff. And then coming into November, we start presenting. So tonight you get the first view of the budget with the capital budget. And I'd like to say I'm really proud of our directors this year with respect to the 5-year capital budget. I would say it's probably the most detailed capital budget that we've had over a 5-year term. And with the implementation of our new budgeting software, Questica, we've actually been able to finance all 5 years of the capital budget, which is excellent. We've never been able to do that before. And so that's something that you'll see coming up later on in the presentation. And then finally, we're hoping for approval like usual in December. So you'll see me again December 8th at the operating and capital, the combined budget presentation. And then all of our bylaws and reports will come to council at our final meeting in 2021 on December 15th. So understanding the budget, it's very clear, a clear-cut process. So municipalities must present a balanced budget as mandated by provincial legislation. So this means we can't have a surplus or a deficit. So we need to make sure that our revenues minus expenses equals our balanced budget. And staff work very hard all year long to ensure that this is the case for Middlesex Centre. So there are some differences when you're looking at an operating versus a capital budget that are outlined here. So tonight we'll be talking about the capital side. So if you look to the right hand side of your screen. And so significant expenditures to acquire, construct, or improve land, buildings, engineering structures, and machinery and equipment used to provide municipal services with a benefit lasting beyond 1 year. So this is our long-term planning, and that's where we do that 5-year forecast. Next up, you're going to see how the operating and capital budgets are separate, yet they work together. So they're independent, they're separate, although they are connected, as you'll see. So we have our operating budget ties into our capital budget, and in the middle there is our reserve and reserve funds. And so as we go through this presentation tonight, this is something that you'll come to see how perfectly it comes together, just like a nice little puzzle. So the municipality sets out our anticipated capital expenditures and how we're going to finance it in the capital budget. The funds are here, and they do show mostly from our reserve funds, as you'll note later on in the presentation. And that's to purchase and rehabilitate or upgrade our large municipally owned assets, including the buildings, lands, and roads, as well as the purchase of equipment such as vehicles. So capital items have a life expectancy, as I've said before, of more than 1 year. And our budget is based on a 5-year plan where the cost of a project may be spread out over more than 1 year. You will see that throughout the presentation. We do have a large amount of carried forward capital projects from 2021. And as many of you on council might remember, some of these even go back to 2020 or 2019. So some of our projects are very large, and they do take a lot of time to actually get done. So many will span those multiple years. So when we're talking about our revenue for capital projects, I'll get into this a little bit more in detail near the end of the presentation, but just to touch on it, the main funding sources are reserves and our reserve funds, our debt financing. In the past few years, we have not had any debt financing as part of our capital budget, but you'll notice this year we do have a couple projects that have been identified. And now that we have the full 5-year capital budget, there's even 2 more identified that come later on. We do get donations and grants. That's always something that the municipality is very actively involved in trying to get grants for any of our capital projects. And then we do have development charges as well. And so development charges help pay for the growth aspects of our capital projects. And when you're noticed here that you don't really see the property taxes paying for our capital projects, but they really do. So here at Middlesex Centre, our process is that a good portion of our property taxes collected every year gets transferred into our reserves and reserve funds, which are then used for those capital commitments. So overall, and this is something to be said for the capital budget as well as the operating budget, it is quite a balancing act. So there are limited funds available to the municipality as you would have in your own home. And you need to be able to balance the project needs. So one of the things that Middlesex Centre does is when we're meeting as a group with our members of council, as well as with the directors and different managers of all departments, we talk about all the capital projects. So you'll see at the end of the presentation in your attachments, the extensive lists of all the capital projects over the next 5 years. And when we're talking about each individual year and each individual project, we take a look at things such as risk, health and safety, any legislative requirements, whether it's new, whether it's growth, whether it's efficiency, whether it's part of our asset management plan and it needs to be renewed. And we look at that infrastructure deficit and that gap that we have that exists with our asset management plan. So there are so many factors that go into making those decisions of how we're going to select which capital projects which year, because as you know, funding is limited. So there's other processes that we also look at when we're building our capital budget. We do tie this back to our strategic plan. So council passed a strategic plan here in 2021, and this is something that helps guide us while we're building our budget. This year, we have our asset management plan and the strategic policy. The strategic policy was passed in 2019, but our asset management plan was updated and passed in June of this year. Our long-range financial plan. This is something that we've had in 2016, and you'll see in the operating budget, it's one thing to be updated in 2022. So something to look forward to. Our water financial plan was passed in May of this year. We have a debt policy, our reserve and reserve fund policy, our development charge study, which is actually being amended as we speak. That should be coming to council on December 15th as well. We have our community services master plan, our fire master plan, and in the budget is actually transportation, water, wastewater, and stormwater master plans that will be started in 2022 as well. These are all documents that will help guide our municipality in making the decisions in order to build our budgets, not just capital, but operating as well. And then, of course, one of my personal favorites is our budget survey and public engagement. As mentioned earlier, this is the community's budget. This is Middlesex Center's budget, and we love to hear from the public and their initiatives. And you'll see this year how we've tied that in to our capital budget planning, as well as our operating budget planning. Oh, sorry, just one moment. So with building the budget, there does come some challenges. One moment, just one moment, my slideshow is not working. Is everyone seeing a blank screen?
We did see the screen, the capital budget challenges screen, and now it's got the click to add like a new slide screen. That's what we see right now.
Okay. Sorry, it looks like I'm having some technical difficulties. Just one moment.
Just highlighted on. She has it highlighted on the map. I think that's the screen right here.
All right.
There it is.
There it is. Sorry, everyone. So our capital budget challenges. So some of the things that we take into consideration as challenges each and every year is our aging infrastructure. So council is well aware of this with our asset management plan being passed earlier this year. We do have some older infrastructure that does need to be repaired and ongoing maintenance and eventually rehabilitation. We have climate change and weather events. You can see these pressures on our stormwater management. We have a lack of predictable government funding and uncertainty with respect to federal and provincial governments. We have received a lot of government grants, which is great to see, and it does help fund a lot of our capital as well as our operating, but not knowing when this is happening or when it's not formula based, which means that we have to apply for it each year. This can add some uncertainty to planning for our budget. Our assessment mix, we will talk about this more on December 8th, but we have a lack of business and industrial growth here in Middlesex Center. And so the tax burden falls on the majority on our residential taxpayers, as well as our farmers, agricultural taxpayers. There's a balance between services and cost. Of course, a lot of people want to see some different services, and that does come at a cost. There's uncertainty of operating in a pandemic and pandemic pricing. That's something that we're really going to highlight this year. The oil price is impacting the cost of asphalt and tar and chip that you'll see in our pricing. Instability and increase of fuel prices and material price increases just in general. So these are a lot of things that you're seeing even at your home. A lot of people would have noticed this year with the price of lumber. This isn't something that's just isolated to a residential building. This happens for municipalities as well. And we have to ensure that we're incorporating these challenges and making sure that we're overcoming them in our budget. So pandemic pricing, we wanted to go into a little bit more detail this year. So the municipality, we did receive COVID funding from the provincial government, which was great and really helped with those operating costs in order to get us through the last couple of years. However, things that they haven't really taken into account is anything to do with our capital projects. So pandemic pricing, something that we are all experiencing, is happening, especially at the municipality. So what we've seen is an increase in material and manufacturing costs, an increase in project delays, supply issues, and equipment and vehicle pricing increases for 2022 expected to increase 6 to 10% over 2021. These are some significant costs. So some examples for council. Westbrook Park Playground Replacement. In 2022, this project is expected to cost $160,000. In 2019, this project would have cost $120,000 based on a similar project that was done in 2019 for another playground replacement. Accounting for in 2019 in today's dollars with the normal inflation, say at 3%, it should be around $130,000. Therefore, we're seeing an increase of approximately $30,000 or 23% just due to the COVID pricing. And on top of that, we do have the supply issues. So it is taking a lot longer to actually get done. This is something that council is well aware of, the construction of our new storage shed in Denfield. At the beginning of 2021, council approved the project at a cost of $100,000. In 2021, mid-year, council approved an increase in the budget to $137,500. Now, staff are recommending a cost of $200,000 for that same project. Overall, that's an increase of 100%. So it has doubled in price from $100,000 to $200,000. Some of the other things that are challenging that are not related to COVID are the additional costs that we're going to be seeing in operating and capital related to the vandalism and security costs that are happening in our municipality. We have additional spending due to this issue. There's capital costs of $21,500 for security cameras at park buildings, $42,500 for a security system upgrade at the Wellness Center. Operating costs, there's $47,200 for repairs and maintenance of park buildings due to vandalism in 2022. This is something that we're repairing from our 2021 year. And $50,000 for security on site at the Wellness Center and Ilderton Arena due to the mandatory COVID-19 vaccination requirements. Although the province has noted that this will end early in 2022, the costs could go on for a little bit longer, obviously in 2022, so you'll see those budgeted. So at this moment, I'm going to pause and stop here for questions from council. If council has any questions for me, I don't know if any of the other directors are on the call yet.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Tiffany. I'll look to council for any comments, questions, clarifications. Councillor Heffernan.
Through the mayor, just Tiffany, did we get, were we able to recover any costs from the vandalism that we had to replace?
At this time, I do not believe that we have been able to recover any of those costs, but our Director of Community Services, Scott Mayers, would have some more information on that. He would know better if they actually did recover any, but not that I've seen in our operations.
Other questions? Councillor Cates.
I was just going to comment on the cost of the vandalism and you know, there it is in real numbers in front of everybody to see what the cost of that is.
Anyone else? I don't see any more questions now, Tiffany.
Okay, perfect. So right now we're going to jump into the 2022 capital budget highlights. So some of the issues and drivers for Middlesex Center is to create enhanced transparency and accountability, include public feedback, deliver a fiscally responsible budget, maintain a sustainable financial position, continue analysis on reducing costs and creating more efficient processes, build our municipal reserve funds, and priority focus efforts in 2022 on addressing our infrastructure deficit and implementing those priorities of our strategic plan. So at this time, I'd like to tie in our strategic plan to our 2022 budget. Obviously, when you're looking at the budget as a whole, there's so many aspects of our strategic plan that we tie into, and I'm really excited to kind of focus on those on December 8th. However, when we're looking at just the capital portion tonight, we have a few that I'd like to highlight. One being responsive government. Objective 5.3, foster a culture of innovation, continuous improvement, and cost-effective service delivery. So by sharing information and gathering input, continuing our timely and effective communication to the public. We have a bunch here for our sustainable infrastructure and services. So objective 4.3, continue with our asset management plan and apply a financial sustainability lens to our municipal assets and infrastructure. So as you can see, we're constantly updating our asset management plan and building off of that and building our reserve funds for in order to pay for all of this. You'll see later in the document that we do have a reserve fund plan in order to fund all of this, especially when we're talking about our tax levy paid for capital assets. We're also communicating our approach to capital projects and communicating clearly with the public on capital spending priorities in terms of costs, benefits, funding sources, and timing. So that's what's happening in presentations like tonight. As well, we get this information out to the public. You'll notice if you've seen on our website lately that we have different web pages that are highlighting our capital projects throughout the year, trying to provide our community with a lot more information on these important capital projects. So stay tuned, and if you haven't checked it out, please visit our website. So another thing that I like to highlight when we're talking about the budget is the budget survey and how we tie that in. Each year we talk about tying it in, but this year I wanted to actually give some examples. So residents provided feedback in the 2022 budget through the annual survey. And so example 1 is the appropriate and sustainable funding to maintain infrastructure at a reasonable level, fair to excellent condition. So as you can see, these are comments that came directly from our residents in our survey. So to highlight that, roads was rated the most important asset with 64.24% of respondents voting this way. So see, these are some of the projects we're doing. There's some asphalt resurfacing of $1.1 million, tar and chip resurfacing was $600,000, and we have the neck roads reconstruction coming in at $1.37 million. Example 2, I would love to see more parks and trails in Ilderton area. I think outdoor activity is so important for physical and mental health. It's important that we have the facilities to support that for our community members, young and older. Well, we agree. And parks and trails are so important for Middlesex Center and to be the community that we all love. So you'll see that the Clear Skies primary and secondary trails should be starting in 2022. Our Ilderton Optimist Park, replace that park playground equipment, is also going to be starting. Not just talking about our Ilderton area, I know the comment was from there, but we're doing this throughout the municipality. So you'll see Kilworth Optimist Trident Park Development and Westbrook Park replace playground equipment. So those are some really great community services initiatives that are going to be happening that ties into that request. Example 3, I have read repeatedly about funds being put into reserve accounts for future use, one being the monies paid in lieu of a new municipal building in Kamoka. The municipality needs to be more forthcoming as to where these funds have been directed or will be directed before explaining that costs are going up and hinting that taxes must go up or services will be reduced. So for everyone's benefit, an additional $1 million contribution to reserve funds to support asset management is in the 2022 budget. If you remember from our asset management plan passed back in June 2021, this is the recommendation for the next 5 years at least, that we put an additional $1 million into our reserve funds, supporting those tax levy supported capital assets. Those are your buildings and facilities, fire, vehicles and equipment, general vehicles and equipment, and roads capital reserve funds. So this is that additional $1 million. This is where it's going. If you're looking at our capital budget and all the funding sources in the attachments to the report, you'll see exactly what those projects are, where they're being funded from, and how those reserves are being built. Attached also to this report is our reserve forecast, and it goes out for the next 5 years. This is something to see as it shows that additional $1 million every year, as well as the other transfer ins that we've already been doing and how it's coming out. So this is something that I want to make sure that we are doing a really good job for everyone to understand. When we look at our operating budget, you see these large, a large amount going to transfers and to reserves. And I really want to explain where that's going and how it benefits our community. So some notable changes for 2022. So the Ontario Community Infrastructure Fund, OCIF funding, has been included in the 2022 budget. However, the amount for 2022 is unknown. So the province has announced that they will be providing municipalities, and I believe they have noted it will be larger than it has been in the past, but they haven't noted how much for each individual municipality. So to be conservative, I have budgeted based on what we received in 2021. I am hopeful that it will be more, but I do want to be conservative when we're building our budget. If it is received at more, we will be looking at another project to fund from it that's in Roads Capital Reserve Fund. So stay tuned. Hopefully that good news comes soon. And as mentioned earlier, we have a 5-year capital financing and cash flow projections for capital, and that does include debt funded projects. So as mentioned earlier, you haven't seen a lot of debt funded projects for the municipality recently. And so that's something that we will talk about a little bit more in detail. And as we go through, this is just where we started. I won't go into detail. You will see that the starting budgets, when we sat down, and Councillor Arts and Councillor Shipley are well aware of this, were very high, especially when we are looking at the entire 5-year capital. There were a lot of cuts that were done for the 2022 year, and there were, and also there were some deferrals that happened for later on in the year. And so when we're looking at that, those deferrals are things that we will be talking about as a team in much more detail in the years to come. So we need to come up with a strategy of how to address this, as if they aren't related to our asset management plan, growth, or efficiency, we need to ensure how we can include this. So here's our 5-year capital plan. So you'll see for the total 5-year plan is $138,813,779. That's a significant amount for a municipality when you're looking at our tax levy being around $21 million a year. So these are our capital recommended capital projects by department. You'll see that this year we have added fleet services as its own separate department. So we don't have comparators at this time. However, as we continue to grow and for next year and the years after, you will see those comparators coming out. For now, those would be built into all the different departments' budgets. So when we're looking at our capital projects by department, just breakdown in our graph here, you'll notice, as usual, Public Works and Engineering and Environmental Services makes up the majority of our capital projects. And once again, I'll just point out Fleet Services. It will have in the future have some comparators for different years, but you'll notice there's some like highs and lows in each department, and those will depend on specific projects, but overall everyone's somewhat steady within their own department. So capital projects carry forward. As talked about a little bit earlier, we do have quite a bit, and there are specific reasons. So there's projects that span multiple years and have multiple components. There's design and construction and things that just take a very long time to complete. We have a deferral of projects due to contractor or municipal staff capacity. We have deferral due to change or increase in price project costs. The Denfield shed would be a great example of that. And there's obviously other projects that we're waiting on other governmental approvals to proceed with. So we cannot proceed until that happens. And that's something that's out of our control. So it can take a little while. And so projects being carried forward in 2022 are valued at $9,196,000 in 2021 dollars. And in 2022, it's $12,876,000. So that could also be a new aspect being added on to that project, and or could be an increase in the cost. So this is just a list of the capital projects carried forward. Please feel free to ask any of the director's questions when we get to their specific sections. Anything with an asterisk beside it, those prices have gone up. So I will begin with the general government highlight. And as you can see, there's not much there. We do have those carry forward of the $1 million in the industrial land. And we have about 20,000 carry forward on our phone system. The implementation of the actual phone system, we do have the materials will be arriving shortly. However, it'll be implemented in January. So there'll be some costs carried forward. The additional 4,240 is so we can do the phase 2 of the municipal office phone system. And that is connecting into our other sites. So the first phase has included the wellness center as well as the municipal office. And the second phase will include like our Denfield operations, our Delaware operations, our fire stations. So we're going to have that all combined into the one municipal office phone system. So that'll be great to be connected. So next up is fire. So I will ask if there's any questions for me at this time before we pass it over to the fire chief.
Not seeing any.
Okay, and I'm back on screen. So that's great. So I will pass it over to Colin Toth, our fire chief, who will discuss fire.
Awesome, thanks, Tiff. Good evening, council. Through you, Mayor. Not a lot of capital projects for fire services this year, 3 to be exact, for 2022. First off, personal protective equipment, PPE. The amount that you see in front of you is for our 12 new recruits that we hired for 2021. Right now, they're in temporary gear, and this will finish off their issue. Second, we have hose and hose accessories. So these cover new pieces of equipment that we use during the course of our firefighting, and also includes some new tools based on new tactics and techniques that we're using. In front of you have approximately 15,000 for that project. Tying it off, we have our extrication equipment for all stations. So that includes all 5 stations. And this includes a number of pieces of equipment that we use and we upgrade usually in a 10-year cyclical project. They include increased and enhancing our extrication equipment, our cutters and spreaders for motor vehicle collisions, for example, newer stabilization kits, supplementing some of the stations that are lower on those numbers of kits, replacement cut saws. A lot of our saws are getting quite tired and they need replacing. That project in front of you is $200,000. And again, that's between all 5 stations. That summarizes fire services capital projects for 2022. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for that presentation, Chief. I'm looking and I don't see any hands. So thank you for that presentation.
Perfect, thank you. I will hand it over to the Director of Community Services, Scott Mares.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. I'm going to start off with just highlighted a few projects here within community services. Some small, some large. So we've just highlighted a few here on the next few slides. So starting with in community services, this is made up mostly of parks and open space projects. We've got at Denfield Park, trying to give that site a bit of an upgrade. We painted this year. We're looking to replace the tennis net posts and ground sleeves next year. We've got an active pickleball community now in Middlesex Center, so this also assists that program as well. We have $25,000 identified to further make some enhancements to the Poplar Hill Park, specifically at the grandstand. As you know, it's quite old, and we did a number of improvements over at the pavilion site. This is kind of the next phase to continue with those improvements at that park. We have funds identified at Deerhaven Park to add some additional supplemental lighting. If anyone's walked through that park, it's quite dark at night. As Tiff has noted through her presentation so far, vandalism has taken center stage in a lot of our parks, this one in particular. So we're looking to add some additional lighting in there to give some protection to not only the playground and the washroom facility, basketball court, etc., but just to add some safety features to the park as well. The Clear Skies Secondary Trail, this is the trail that will wrap around the Clear Skies development. We are actively right now working with Sifton and hoping that project to get started in the spring of next year. So crossing our fingers there, but we are actively working with Sifton on that project. The Westbrook Park project, again, so as Tiff had noted, we're in the process of doing some playground renewals at a number of our parks and playgrounds throughout Middlesex Center, to which we have 12. Westbrook is next on the list. This project is also, we have an active grant at the moment with Trillium in their capital stream. So cross our fingers that we've been successful in the past with these types of projects. So we're hoping to be successful again with this one. So stay tuned on that. The $85,000 at Ilderton Optimus Park, that's not a new item. That's actually a carryover from 2021. As you know, I've mentioned this before, our playground projects are split into 2 phases. One is the base construction, and the second is the playground equipment itself. That 85,000 identified is for the playground equipment that has been procured and has been ordered. Again, that's a carry forward. That's not a new item. The same goes for the Kilworth Optimist Trident Park development. We've done a base construction is happening now. We've ordered the playground itself to be installed in the spring of 2022. Just a bit of a quick map here to show where some of the projects that throughout my budget are going. When we do our budget and community services, we always like to try and look at a bit of a cross section across the municipality to make sure, we've got a number of our communities identified, and we see those service level improvements happening throughout the municipality, not just in one area. In our facility services division, a few here to highlight for you. $18,000. This is down in our Delaware Community Center. It's to replace the meeting room floor. It's a carpeted floor. It's in poor shape as identified through our building condition assessments and asset management plan. We've got funds identified at the Ilderton Library for parking lot improvements. If anyone's been to the medical center and the library, Ilderton Library, that parking lot is a bit disjointed and definitely needs some assistance, and it's certainly not accessible at this time. So we are looking to clean that up and make improvements to that parking lot itself. We've got $28,000 and $500 identified for our compressor 2 as part of our replacement of those units. We have 3 compressors down in the wellness center. They all get replaced based on the number of hours. It's compressor 2's turn to get replaced. We're adding CO and CO2 gas detection systems at the Ilderton Arena. Tiff had noted the security camera system upgrade at the wellness center. It was installed in 2011. It's no longer sufficient. And that area is also seeing increased vandalism and thefts and break-ins, etc. And then just a small noted project there at the Ilderton Community Center to replace the washroom and exhaust fans at the community center itself. Next slide, please.
I did. Can you see it?
No, it didn't move on me.
Okay.
Oh, sorry. No, I see it now.
Okay,
No problem. Coldstream Fire Hall, we're adding a UV light water treatment system to that facility just to further enhance the water system there. We also have funds identified to begin the design work for the municipal office renovation, to look at engaging with an architect and look at getting into our functional program and detailed design and understanding the costs and the scope of work, etc., for the renovation that would hope to start in 2023. Again, Tiff had noted this earlier, as you're well aware, the Denfield Operations Storage Shed is identified there. Air quality monitoring system at the Denfield Operations Center in the large apparatus bay has been included, and the Ilderton Medical Parking Lot improvements. It's kind of the same project as the library. They share. It's just we've highlighted it because they are somewhat, even though they're together, they kind of service the 2 different facilities there. I think that's me. Before I hand it over to Rob, any questions of me?
Deputy Mayor Brennan.
You, Madam Mayor, to Scott, and I brought this up before in the past. We're looking at Clear Skies primary trail and secondary trail. A lot of money being spent there. A lot of times the lands these developers give us are lands they can't use. And in this case, some of it is where the water line goes through their subdivision. So they give us that land to do stuff with. And it's really not giving us anything because they can't use that land anyways. So I guess what I'm getting at, is there any financial assistance from the developer to create these trails when the land they're giving us isn't worth anything to them anyways? Are they giving us any money to help develop that?
Through the mayor, I may have to defer to Rob. I know Rob and Jake handle a lot of the development subdivision agreements. In this case, I don't believe the trail, and Rob can quote me if I'm wrong, I don't believe the trail was accounted for the 5% parkland dedication. So it doesn't make up that 5%, and if they're short, they add value to that. This one, I don't have the details in front of me as far as the subdivision agreement, so I can't speak to that. I'm not sure if Rob can add to that.
Sure. So through Madam Mayor to Deputy Mayor and Scott. So I'd have to confirm whether or not that was included in the 5% calculation. But as far as funding of the trail itself, in an example, the Clear Skies, they're not contributing cash towards the construction of it. That agreement in particular has an arrangement where they construct through a quoted or tendered process, and then we would reimburse them for that construction cost. I believe those costs are funded though through development charges, so that would be the mechanism where we're getting the money from the developers to pay for that infrastructure.
And that is correct. It is development charge funded.
Yeah.
Thank you. Just a follow-up. I see we're putting a lot of security camera systems in, Scott, and the reason is obvious, to try to cut down on the vandalism in the parks and that. But we've seen in cases that these kids are getting smart. They wear hoodies, they keep their face out of the line of fire of the cameras. How effective are these security camera systems proving, doing the fact that these kids are getting smarter and know they're there and they do everything they can to avoid them?
Through the mayor, they're actually quite brazen, John. Sometimes they don't even go to the extent of covering their face. In some cases, we have a handful of investigations that are in the hands of the OPP. We have handed over a number of USB drives to the OPP for their review that we've downloaded through our video surveillance, as per our video surveillance policy. James is, I think, getting tired of us requesting access to the DVRs. So we're kind of at the mercy of the investigators. We are struggling a little bit in getting some closure to some of these. And to answer Councillor Heffernan's question earlier, have we recouped any money? We know it's been a struggle. And some of our challenges even at Weldon Park, as you know, recently with the students of Medway. So and things that are happening there, it's been very difficult. They will help. I like to think that they deter. But it is an added security measure we'd like to take further.
Thank you.
Any additional questions? Councillor Scott?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you to Scott. I know this is just a quick question for you, Scott. I might have touched on it before when we chatted, but at the community center, I know we did the parking lot over there in Delaware, and the one that's down below where the old tennis courts. Is there any future plans for that, or will that always, do you think, be a parking lot? Like, I don't mean for next year, obviously. I'm just kind of checking if there's any insight into that, whether it would be extended parking.
Through the mayor, are you meaning at where the ball hockey rink is, that parking lot specifically?
No, I'm meaning at the community center. So where you might not remember, the existing golf or tennis courts used to be there. So that would be on the east end of the community center. There's a sizable parking lot there, and I didn't know if you guys had come up with any future plans or considerations for that, because I know it's in rough condition too. Yeah,
I'd have to double check. Just I'm trying to remember if it's captured in our 5-year capital plan, but we're starting to, a number of those areas, especially the asphalted areas, are in disrepair and definitely in need. I would just have to double check that on if that one's captured in future years. It would be part of our asset management plan though. So I will look into that one specifically.
Yeah, no, it's not like it was urgent. I realize we got lots of other things that are more important. I just was curious if it's in the works for the future now. Thank you.
Is there anyone else? I don't see any hands. I think we can move to the next presenter.
Okay, so next up is Rob Skin, the Director of Public Works and Engineering, and he'll take you through all the Public Works and Engineering capital projects.
Thanks, Tiffany. I just had to unmute myself there. So good evening, everyone. Yeah, I'll run through the Public Works and Engineering, the different aspects of that. So we're going to start off with transportation and our construction projects. So these projects are a mixture of, or are completed by a mixture of in-house labor and external contractors. So the first one is the Van Road reconstruction from Sinclair to Medway. So it's a new project, but it's a continuation of the project that was completed in 2021, which was Medway to Illigen Road. So that's a project where we do use our internal labor as much as possible, with the exception of placing the asphalt and some other items that we can't do in-house. But so that's one of the large undertakings for us, and that'll be a nice completion of Van Road all the way down to Sinclair. The next one is $40,000 for Amiens Road at the rail overpass. So there are some drainage issues there that occur under rain events. So we'd like to do some improvements there just to improve road safety, to try to, if not eliminate, at least minimize the ponding that occurs directly under that overpass. Carriage Road rebuild. So this would be one that's located at the north end of Carriage Road, where it comes out to Gideon. So the road is not in very good shape in some locations. So we're looking to reconstruct it, improve drainage along that section, and improve some of the roadside safety features like the guide rail that's in place. It'd be a full replacement of the existing guide rail. And I believe that section of road is about 800 meters long that we're looking at redoing. The next one is one that it's become an annual capital project. It's a new project every year, but it's one that we carry annually in the budget for as an asset management replacement project. So it's resurfacing of HL3 or asphalt roads. So at this point, we have not identified the roads for 2022. We're going to do further analysis using the road needs study that's in place, and then as well as the street scan data that we received last year from street scan. And I'm not sure if council remembers, that was the the program where we had a contractor through the LAS program with the county and other lower tiers that came in and scanned our roads and sidewalks to identify deficiencies. So we're looking to see how that lines up with the more manual road needs study that was completed, and to identify the priority areas for resurfacing for next year. The next two projects are projects that are already underway in the design stage, and then next year in 2022 will be the construction stage of those projects. So that's replacements of these bridges on 16 mile and 10 mile. And you see the dollar figure is quite large for the construction cost, but these are good sized structures. The spans on them are nearly 40 feet, or I think they're 11.9 and 11.8 meters, so quite large. And we can go to the next page. So here is the map, just giving a kind of a geographical layout of the various projects. So you can see they do span a good portion of the municipality. And then on to fleet. So the first page here is Public Works fleet, and then we'll have a second page with community services. But the first page, so it's a new 1-ton truck. This is growth related, and so this item would be DC funded. It's just an expansion of our fleet. There's some efficiencies, and it is a good sized truck, but it's not as large as a tandem truck. So we want to balance out the fleet that we have, so we're using the appropriate size vehicles or equipment to undertake the jobs that we're doing. So we're not driving larger trucks when it's not necessary, that type of thing. The replacement grader, that's just to replace a grader that is aging and conditioning out. So that's the John Deere grader that replaced next year. We would again probably go through the LAS program, which we did with a recent replacement and had good success there. Even though prices are going up, that's a good option for us instead of a typical tender. The $30,000 replacement mower, so that's a roadside mower, just end of life for that, and a straight replacement. The stacker, so that we use that to stockpile sand and salt for the winter into the sand salt storage areas. We use it for stockpiling gravel down at the Delaware Enviro Depot, or recycled asphalt at one of the pits. So it has different uses throughout the year. Again, it's just at end of life. Replacement tandem truck. So again, we've seen a cycle of these coming over the last few years. It's just, we're again working with our fleet management policy and asset management life cycle replacement. So we have the single replacement intended for 2022, and then the replacement of a tractor and attachments as well. So the next page is related to community services. So we have a few items here. So they're looking to replace a towed leaf vacuum, a replacement of an ice resurfacer, replacement of a tractor and snow blade, and a triplex mower and a zero turn mower. So the obviously the smaller mowers are used for the parks. I'm not sure which ice resurfacer is this one is, so I'd have to confirm that with Scott if there's any questions on that. Now on to water. So these projects, a lot of them are kind of related to operations, but they're large enough to be considered capital repairs and upgrades. So we've kind of lumped items together to form them into those capital projects. These are, they're all new projects. They've been identified through facility assessments, or many of them have been assessments that were done in 2021. So we have about $30,000 or $37,000 worth of upgrades planned at the Arva water plant. So it's at the south end of town, just before the interface with the City of London. And then we have $36,000 at the Burr water station for equipment improvements there as well. The next one is a bit bigger. This is a water main twinning on Glendon Drive. So currently the connection between Kamoka and Kilworth is a single feed on Glendon Drive, or for a portion of it. So this is a budget to complete a project in relation, or in cooperation with one of the developments as well, to finish this twinning, so that there will be some redundancy for the supply to Kilworth. The next item is instrumentation and control. So again, this was one that came out of the facility assessment that was done this year. So that would be an improvement at, I think it's at the Melrose facility. So that's one where we've budgeted for it, but we also have a capital project for a new facility in Melrose. And so this is in there essentially, that depending on the timing of the new facility, if we can't wait and we have to go through upgrades, so the budget's there. But our hope is to move along the larger capital project and defer this until such time that the new one is in place. The next one is $38,000 for water tank and reservoir cleanouts. So again, this is very much an operational item, but it is large enough to be considered a capital project and prolongs the life of these assets. $150,000 vertical water system improvements. This is again one where we've combined improvements that will be required at the different facilities. It's not necessarily specific at this point, but we know that it's more than just repairs. That as we work through the year, we come across these larger upgrades that are required, and this would be the budget item for this. The $47,000 for water facility process mechanical improvements. Again, that would be a larger project that would encompass more than one facility, just for mechanical upgrades. Oops, sorry, my page didn't turn. And then on to wastewater. So here we have $75,000 for concrete rehab and sealing. Again, so this is an investment to help prolong the life of the concrete structures. And we have $64,000 in for a handrail and kick plate installation. That's at the Kamoka wastewater facility, and that's really a safety related item around the tanks. And we have $50,000 for horizontal wastewater system rehab. Again, that's one that operational, if there's some upgrades that are required or breaks, that this is that line item. The influent channel flow monitoring, this is one that's going to assist with operational efficiencies as we get this in place. So it'll be some design review and implementation, looking at to better track the influent that comes into the various tanks and adjust our treatment with the intent of really optimizing the treatment in the facility. The $500,000 for the Kamoka wastewater aeration and HVAC improvements. So we've experienced some issues there with moisture in the facility. This is intended to alleviate that. The $60,000 for vertical wastewater system improvements. Again, that similar to the horizontal, it's kind of one that's packaged together. And then the pump, the two items for pump station and submersible pumps. Those are ones that we know that we will see rebuilds and equipment improvements required. Like very much operational, but large enough to be capital assets. So again, these are all new items this year. And onto stormwater. So here we have 4 projects listed. However, 3 of them are carryovers with some price adjustments. So the Delaware Municipal drain replacement. So that's one drain along Longwoods where we have experienced some issues. The drain is currently functional now, so we'll do further review on it and see whether or not we can continue with repairs or whether or not we need a full replacement. The King and George Street reconstruction. So this is to start looking at the design component related to stormwater, just to align the timing with the potential development at the west end of George Street. That will have part of that design is stormwater as well. The intent wouldn't be to implement the George Street and King Street reconstruction until such time that the development proceeds, so that the road doesn't get beat up. So the stormwater will be one component of it, and there'll be water replacement and road reconstruction as well. The Kamoka drain number 1, that's a swim pond at the southwest corner of Kamoka Road and Glendon Drive. So this is something that was a carry forward project, but we've increased the budget to allow for some land acquisition and preliminary design on the facility. And then number 4 is the Union Ave branch of the Kamoka drain. So we've gone through that, and there's been a report to council regarding implementation of the maintenance. So the intended implementation is in 2022. Oops. And then we have a few multi-departmental projects. So these are all actually, sorry, the first 2 are carry forward projects. So Garden Ave and Wellington Road have been deferred because we were waiting on some MECP and MECP ECA permit and then permit to take water. We now have the ECA in hand and are expecting the permit to take water very soon. The Garden Ave Wellington Road was previously broken into multiple projects. So I think actually when you look at the carry forward projects, you'll see it broken down into a roads project, a stormwater project. We have also now actually added in a water replacement project on Wellington Road or Wellington Street. The intent there is that we know that there's going to have to be water main upgrades in the future as well. So while we're in there doing the storm sewer installation and the reconstruction, we'll replace that section of water main at the same time to save future costs. The Tunks Lane servicing, so that's related to the upcoming DFH development and some service requirements on Tunks Lane. The 1.3 million for Coldstream Road realignment. So this is tied to the county roundabout project at Vanek, Jeffries, and Glendon Drive. So Coldstream Road, from its current alignment, will be realigned through the lands west of Coldstream Road and then circle out and come down to Glendon Drive. So this is the road component of that realignment. So again, the map demonstrates, again, some of the locations of these projects, again, pretty dispersed across the municipality. And any questions?
Thank you for that. I look to council now. Deputy Mayor Brennan.
Just a clarification. The Kamoka wastewater treatment plant filter upgrades, $1.5 million. What exactly is that?
So that's at the Kamoka wastewater facility. So those are the filters that filter, one of the steps in filtering the effluent. So the filters that are in place now are, my understanding that pretty much nowhere else uses that technology anymore, and it's difficult to find replacement parts for it. We have struggled with the operation of them, with them clogging, and so they don't run very efficiently. The team has been working on operational improvements to get a better, I guess, life cycle out of them before replacement or cleaning. So right now we're working on operational improvements to defer that capital expenditure. That's why we had deferred it last year. So we're hoping to get, with the improvements that we're trying to make, that we get a couple more years out of that. But as growth continues and the flow is increased, there will come a point where we will have to upgrade the filters.
Thank you.
Mr. Reed, anyone else? Rob, just a question. You're talking about the realignment of Coldstream to the railway track, and this is a little bit offside, but is the railway track underpass our responsibility in the future, or is that something that's done jointly with the railway company?
So we're actually not going under the railway tracks. The realignment is stopping short of that.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? All right, I think we can move to the next one now then.
Okay, perfect. Welcome back. So funding of capital projects. So now we get to the fun stuff. So as you can see here, the majority of the capital projects are funded from reserve funds. So almost 84%. And then we have development charges as a second, and then a little bit in debt. And so I'll get into the debt a little bit later in the presentation, because I know that's something that council would like to concentrate on. And so looking at the specific reserve funds that we will be funding from, you'll see the allocation and breakdown here. That includes the dollar value that would be coming out of those reserve funds, as well as the percentage allocation. So one thing I would like to point out, we have a lot of capital projects. And for a municipality our size, I have concerns with respect to funding of that. So when you're looking at our 2022 capital project breakdown with reserve funds, we are funding almost $21 million out of reserve funds for 2022 capital. We only bring in about $21 million in our tax levy. And so when you're looking at that, that doesn't leave very much room for operating costs at all. We have been building up our reserve funds. Our goal is to continue to build the reserve funds. So we can continue to pay for this capital projects. This is that infrastructure deficit that we've talked about in the past with asset management. This is with the value of assets that we have in our municipality that we have to either update through asset management, or we have these efficiency projects that Rob had just alluded to with those filter replacements. And then we have some of our growth related components for the assets. And at sometimes we have got growth projects that are 100% DC funded. Sometimes they're not. And the municipality, it has benefit to our existing taxpayers and they have to pay their portion. But our capital projects are significant. And they're very large dollar values. So without the assistance of grants, it will become even more difficult every year to pay for these capital projects. And when you look at our 5-year plan for capital projects, it doesn't get any better. There are still a lot of things that we have to do. A lot of these relate to safety concerns. They're very critical, age-based. We do not want to end up with assets that are way too old, or we have to shut down a road, or we have to shut down a bridge. So these are very difficult decisions that council's making. I know staff had a difficult time, as well as our 2 council members on the budget committee, coming up with that really great balance for the capital being put forward this year. But I do really want to stress that financially, like this is a significant amount for a municipality our size with the tax base and the amount of money we're pulling in on the levy every year. So moving on to the capital budget information, I'll get a little bit more into financing. So asset management plan. So I've talked about this a lot during the presentation, and you will continue to hear me talk about this every year and multiple times every year. So yay. But asset management, it is that it's coordinated activity of an organization to put value on its assets. It's balancing of costs, opportunities, and risks against how the assets should last and perform over the life cycle to achieve the municipality's organizational objectives. So our asset management plan, we've had one in place since 2013. We have been improving on it every single year until we brought it to council in June 2021, which was passed. It was used a lot during the building of our 2022 to 2026 capital budget. I would say there is still more work that we have to do on our asset management plan, and you'll see that in the next coming slides, and we'll continue to work on that. The plan does meet the requirements for Ontario Regulation 58817, and there's significant improvements on condition data included. So we focused on a reasonable funding level needed to sustain our current service level. So that was all built into your 2022 budget. So it helped us make the best possible decisions that we can with respect to our construction, operation, maintenance, renewal, replacement, looking at those different choices that you have to make. If we don't replace it this year, what's it going to look like next year? And we talked about that a lot during budget committee. When we looked at deferring projects, the next step was, well, what operational costs are going to cost, like what are going to be there in 2022 if we don't do this capital project? What additional maintenance in order to keep it running at a level that is safe and good for our residents? And so those were some of those tough decisions, and where asset management helps us make those decisions as much as we can. So financial sustainability requires that a municipality ensure that there are sufficient resources to support the delivery of services for which the municipality bears responsibility. And so our strategy, there is a financing strategy that was built as part of asset management. It is being included in our budget this year. One of the things that we were looking at was, as I mentioned earlier, about $1 million additional every year being set aside into our reserves to support the tax levy assets. That's not supporting our water, our wastewater, or our stormwater. What we need to do, so the tax levy, I'm feeling more confident. We're putting away that $1 million, but as you will see on the 8th, that was a very difficult thing to achieve. There's a lot of cuts in our operational budget. So we are coming in at it like about a 2.76% tax rate increase, with that $1 million being put to reserve funds. So I would say that was incredible that we were able to achieve that. But in 2022, we need to do more work on wastewater and stormwater financing strategy. So you would have seen earlier this year, we had the water financing strategy. Our water financial plan that was approved in May ties into our asset management plan that was approved in June. So we align them. They talk about growth as well as rate increases. You will see that we are not recommending a rate increase in water. The growth was sufficient enough in order not to raise it, but those are aligned. When we looked at our asset management plan with wastewater and stormwater, we are looking at significant increases in 2022. We want to take a more detailed analysis of that. So that's a project that we'll be working on in 2022. And we have some smaller increases that are built into the rate and into the budget in 2022 and the rates that you will see tonight on the council agenda. So there is a need for benefit from further investment in order to protect and sustain and maximize our assets. So you'll see that we are working on closing this gap, but we still have a lot of work to do. So when we're looking at the breakdown of our capital assets, this is based on the actual asset, not the value of the assets. So if we had 100 assets, 63 of them, so 63% were directly from our asset management plan. Dollar value wise, the majority of them are either our asset management plan, or some of our growth assets are very large as well. So 63% came directly from the asset management plan. 6% came directly from our development charge study, and about 31% are efficiencies, improvements, the Amiens Road, the overpass drainage improvement. That was something that wasn't identified in our asset management plan. Same thing with those filter upgrades that Rob was talking about. So that was more of an efficiency upgrade. However, it's something that as we continue to work on our asset management plan, as we continue to have all the directors and managers heavily involved in inputting this information, more information will be in our asset management plan that will relate to these. Although they are efficiency, they do relate to our assets, and those things will need to be upgraded or improved on, and that will be built in. So you'll see a shift in these numbers in years to come. So that would be asset management. Next up is debt. So some information on our debt. Our annual repayment limit, as prescribed by the province of Ontario, is 25% of our own source revenues. And we have an internal debt limit of 17% of our own source revenues. Right now, we're at about 10.07%. So we have some room. So I'm not overly concerned with our debt levels at this time. However, we do have two projects that have been identified for debt financing in 2022. That would be Old River Road, the transportation project, and Kamoka Road, number 1, stormwater management, the swim pond outlined. So our debt broken down. So here you will see a description of all of the debt. Hopefully it is self-explanatory to what the project is. You'll see the total loan, the interest rate, what percentage is DC eligible, and the maturity. So when we'll be having those paid off. Who pays the debt is also very important, especially when we're talking about our tax levy. So the majority of our debt is paid for by development charges, then the tax levy, then our user fees, and then specific users. Outlined in the chart above, I did not include our specific users. Those would be for municipal drains and tile drain loans. They make up a very small amount of our outstanding debt, and I don't outline those because those are specific residents. So what we're all interested in is our new debt that has been proposed. So I have identified 2 projects working within the teams. Old River Road, it's a multi-year transportation project, has been identified. The total borrowing for 2022 to 2024 is about $4 million. The debt payments will be 100% funded by the tax levy, and I've chosen 20 years at approximately $294,290 based on a 4% interest rate. If you're wondering why the 4% interest rate, that is my stress test interest rate. So this is what I would perceive in the coming years to be kind of worst case scenario. At this point, we can borrow a lot less. Infrastructure rates are significantly lower than that, and the municipality would get the lowest rate possible. However, I do want to look at kind of a worst case scenario on the debt payments. So that's why I use that 4% if you are wondering. Payments would not occur until 2024, 2025 when the project is complete. Interim financing will be borrowed from internal reserve funds or a capital financing loan. So that would be something that I would determine in 2022 or 2023, depending on when the project actually starts. This second project that we have identified is the Kamoka Drain number 1. Swim pond, it's a multi-year stormwater project. Total debt borrowing for 2022 and 2023 is $4.5 million. And it's 100% funded by the Stormwater Reserve Fund. If you've looked at the reserve fund balances, you will notice that we do not have that funding in there. In order for me to fund it, I would have to borrow from other reserve funds or get debt. So my plan is to get debt until we take a look at those stormwater rates in more detail in 2022. But at this point, we have identified it for debt. So at that 4% interest rate, we're looking at about $334,797. Payments would occur in 2023, 2024, once the project's complete. And same thing, I would borrow from other reserve funds or capital financing loan. If I go out to debt on any of these, council will be well aware. This is not something that's come as a surprise. It's all done through bylaw, all done through council approval. And I did take a look at, so this is the summary of our loans, and I did take a look at our annual repayment limit. So anytime I suggest that we are going to borrow money, and you'll notice this whenever we do those new drains, I do a new annual repayment limit. This is a requirement of the Act. So I have added in these 2 debt borrowings in 2022. And that is one of the attached reports to the council report that you have in front of you. And our percentage of our own source revenues is calculated at 12.13% at this time. So we are still well below our 17% internal and 25% from the province. But as we look into the future, now that we've been able to finance 5 years of capital projects, we're able to identify what our reserve funds will look like, what our development charges look like, and then on top of that, what kind of debt financing we're going to need. And so other than the Old River Road project and the Kamoka Drain project that we've talked about, there's 2 other projects that have been identified. The Glendon Drive Widening, 2 to 4 lanes transportation project. 2025 is when we're looking at doing it, and it's about $5 million. This project will be partially funded by development charges, and the other would be funded by the tax levy. So you see what those payments would be. And then we have the Ilderton Recreational Facility. So this is a large one. This is something that we've talked about for years. We have a grant in that has been submitted on this. It's one of multiple grants that have already been submitted by staff. So we'll see, but I do want to put out there kind of that worst case scenario. If we do not get any grants and council wants to proceed with this project, it would be by debt. And so that'd be 23,848,000 of financing. And that would be 92.1% funded by the tax levy and 7.9% funded by development charges. I would do this over 40 years. So this is something that would take special council approval as per our debt borrowing bylaw or debt borrowing policy. And the payments would be a little over like 1.2 million at a 4% interest rate. These two projects would actually get us over our internal 17% debt limit by just a little bit. But to be honest, I think as our own source revenues continue to build, this will then, that percentage would go down. And so if we're looking at 2025, I think we would actually be below the 17%, but I did want to do it just based on these year's numbers, as I have not projected what our own source revenues will be in 5 years. Then moving from debt on to our development charges. So we've talked about development charges a lot this fall, and you would notice that development charge amendment that council had a presentation on earlier this month, and the bylaw will be coming to council in December. And so we have been working off of that new amendment. So everything in the budget that you see, I have utilized the new amendment, the values in the 2021 amendment. If that does not pass, I would have to revert back to our 2019 study. And so you'll see a shift in some of how the projects are funded. There was one of the biggest changes that we would have saw in development charges, and that amendment was removing that 10% statutory deduction on our community center, community services type project. So that would make an impact in our community services, those trails that we were talking about earlier. So we have talked about in the past the development charge funding of capital projects and the fact that we are in debt. So this here outlines what we're looking at for the next 5 years. 2026 didn't have any projects identified for development charge funding. So you'll notice it ends at 2025. So it hasn't been cut off. It actually just does end at 2025 at this point. So these are the projects. So 2022, there's a carry forward from 2021, which builds on the 2022. In 2023 and 2024, it gets pretty heavy. So it's a lot more money coming out of our development charges. The line of credit for underfunded development charges will hopefully be paid off by the end of the year in 2022. At this point, it's around $3 million that's still outstanding. So we are still in the red in our development charges. And additional borrowing to support development charges would be projected for 2024 as well, just to support that cash flow funding. So those wouldn't be specific development charge or sorry, debt projects as identified earlier. It would be specifically to handle that cash flow issue that we have in our development charges. So this is what those balances will look like. The previous slide showed the funding that was coming out each year. This shows the year-end balance of our development charges. This kind of shows how they're in the negative. And so this is projected to 2026. And the assumption is about a $5 million development charges collected annually. So if we continue to bring in the development charges based on the building boom that Middlesex Center has been had over the past couple of years, that's a reasonable assumption, but it's something that I would adjust each year. If that does slow down, then these balances would obviously get larger. Reserve and reserve funds. So Middlesex Center can weather the storms and sustain critical infrastructure over a long term without significant fluctuations to our tax rate. So a few things with our reserve funds is we use them to fund the majority of our assets, as noticed earlier. I do something a little bit different here at Middlesex Center than maybe some other municipalities. What we do is we fund the majority of our assets out of the reserve funds rather than the tax levy when we're talking about our capital assets. The reason I do that is because we do have a lot of carry forward assets. We do have multi-year projects, and capital assets and anything in the budget is really just an estimate. So what I like to do is if you're funding it from reserve funds, all of the funding that we get, like our tax levy, those grants, donations, go right into a reserve fund that relates to that capital project. And then when that capital project is done, then it comes out of the reserve fund to fund it. So if there's an overage or an underage, then it's just kind of balanced within that reserve fund, and I'm not balancing it on the tax levy. And so our tax payers don't have to look at anything that could be a huge swing each year, because as you notice from our 5-year capital, it's kind of, it's not completely steady. It's, it can be very fluctuate from year to year. So I do want to kind of balance that out. So we do have our tax rate stabilization reserve fund, water, wastewater, and stormwater reserve funds. And then we have the obligatory reserve funds, such as development charges and our parkland reserve fund. So this is how they work. And we do have some great information on our website that can outline how we use our reserve funds. And it is a strategic management tool, and it's something that I feel that Middlesex Center has been slowly building a lot more reserve funds and even having new categories every year to help either operationally or capital projects. So reserve funds over time. So this is 2021 to 2026 projected, and then 2016 to 2020 actual. And so 2021 is still projected because we don't know how everything is going to come in at the end of the year. And so outlining this, you'll see that we'll have a steady dip from 2021 to 2024, and then we'll start building it up again. And so this is a positive outlook. So this is because one of the things that we're looking at is adding in that additional $1 million. But I find that this one can be a little bit deceiving when we're looking at reserve funds, because as you all know, a lot of our reserve funds are for, well, all reserve funds are for specific reasons. And many of those cannot be used for just general capital projects or anything operationally. They have very specific uses. So I did want to break that out. So these are asset management tax levy supported reserve funds. So you notice that the value is significantly lower than the previous slide. Once again, it continues to dip and will actually be under 10 million in 2024. And so even taking it a step further, I've taken a look at the asset management rate supported. So rate supported would be our water, wastewater, and stormwater. See how much lower those ones are. So when we're looking at it as a whole, it looks a lot healthier. But when you're kind of breaking it down into the different functions, it really does help put it into perspective. And so 2024, we're going to be under 2 million. And you see these water, wastewater, environmental services is almost half of our capital projects. They're significant projects and improvements and things that we'll be doing over the next couple of years. So it's very important we get these reserve funds to a really healthy level. So for this year, we have added in actually all of the balances for our reserve funds. So as mentioned earlier, 2016, sorry, to 2020 is actual, and then 2021 to 2026 is all projected. So this is based on that additional $1 million. This is based on in 2021. We had a standard amount that we were contributing to each reserve fund that continues into 2022 with the additional $1 million. And then we take that value, and that's the value in 2023 plus the additional $1 million. And you can see as it continues to go. And then coming off it is all the capital projects as identified over the 5-year capital budget, as well as our operating projects. So you do know that some operating projects are funded from reserve funds, and we do actually contribute to some of our reserve funds from the operational budget. And so here it outlines all those actual balances. So it's actually a really great picture to see and to actually get those full picture of that numbers. And if you're looking at a specific reserve fund, it's right there for you. And so this is just a couple slides. So it also assumes that 4% increase in wastewater reserve fund transfers, and assumes transfers according to the water financial plan. All right, so that before I go into my continuous improvement and closing remarks, I'm going to open it up for questions at this time.
Thank you for that, Tiffany. Questions from council? No one has any questions. Well, I don't know if this is the right time to make a comment about this or not, but maybe because we've just talked about it, I will do it now. I am really glad to see the asset management plan done to the degree that it is. And I know we're meeting the legislative requirements, but that you're fine tuning all that. To me, when I look at how we integrate what's coming down the tubes and what will be needed based on projections and everything, to me, the value of the plan is that we can smooth our levy increases over. I mean, we're not going to have surprises because we're also doing the reserve fund piece. And the other part of it, of course, is the budget committee can sit there and make informed decisions about what is needed and not sort of guess, well, I like this project, I think I'll throw some money at it. So to me, this is just really nicely thought through, and all of the foundational documents are developed, and you take it and build it up. And as you said, there's still a lot of hard decisions to make about this, but I just want to extend my kudos to staff and the committee for all of the work that's gone into this, because every staff member has had to work to contribute to the base knowledge and figure out where we're at with it, and it's taken a lot of time and effort. So I'll stop there and let you move on with the presentation. Oh, I'm sorry. We do have a question now. Councillor Cates.
I was going to save it to the end, but I just want to agree with what you said. That's what I was going to write down or was going to mention. Well done. And going through the budget printout with the, with my big ruler and line by line, and it really shows you the depth of what all is involved in wastewater and water and just all of those things. It really, it's very large. Thank you.
Nope. All right.
Sorry?
So I'll continue. Oh, do you have any more questions?
No, I thought you were responding and I thought I was
Oh.
cutting you off by saying, I think we can move on. Go ahead.
Perfect. So now I'm going to test everybody's memory. So if you remember back to 2021 budget, we talked about some continuous improvements that we wanted to make. So every year we want to make our budget process better. We want to add more information in there. And so continuous improvement in the 2022 budget that you'll see either tonight or you'll see that on the 8th or in the amazing booklet that is going to be coming to council on the 8th. We proposed council approval of a multi-year capital budget with project commitments along with cash flow forecasting projected for 2022-2026. This is not an approval as in you're committing to it. You are only approving the 1 year, but you have in front of you a multi-year capital budget with actual cash flow forecasting for all the years to get you an idea of where we're going to be going. We develop long-term reserve fund requirements for tax levy supported assets that aligns with the municipal asset management plan. We ensured the asset management plan recommendation on funding level requirements has been included. Aligned fiscal strategy with development charge study amendment for 2021. This is also something that we haven't done. We haven't taken the development charge study and ensured that every project that is we know will be happening in the next 5 years has been included. There are a few that have not, which would include that ladder truck. At this time, that would be something that is more decision, a bigger decision to make once development and including the fire chief. So it hasn't been included in there, but that's one of the few from the development charge amendment study. We aligned our strategy with the asset management plan, even for our water financials. We are looking at doing that with wastewater and stormwater next year. We managed capital commitments with cash flows 5-year projected, including debt financing, considered short-term and long-term impacts of budgetary decisions. And we aligned the fiscal strategy of the capital project with our strategic plan. So you will notice earlier in the presentation, we talked about alignment with our strategic plan. In the December 8th, you will see how much more this is even expanded for all of the projects that we are doing, either capital or operating. And I have to say, I even surprised myself when we were going through that and seeing all the great work of all the different departments that align with the strategic plan. I think council is going to be very pleased. I know I was. So ongoing improvements, things that you can see coming forward. So we will be looking at approval of multi-year capital and operating projection commitments with the cash flow forecasting for 2023 to 2026 budget. I want to align this with the new council that'll be happening for like next fall and then into the 2023 budget. However, at this time, because they have put the reassessment on hold for property taxes for the 2023 year, I don't know if it's the best plan to do a 4-year. So it is something that I am considering. We will talk about it internally. We will talk with council, but it still might be just that 1 year for that first term of council and then do a 3-year after that. Having those phased in values as part of our budget and being able to actually look at that property taxes is extremely important. So by not having it, I'm not sure if that's something that I would feel comfortable presenting to council, because I do feel like it would change just way too much. So stay tuned on that one. Develop a long-term reserve fund requirements that aligns with the municipal asset management plan for water, wastewater, and stormwater. So as I said before, water was completed, but wastewater and storm still need some work in 2022. And then refine the fiscal strategy and set a financial policy. One of the policies I wanted to work on this year was a capital financing policy that tied into our reserve fund policy, our debt policy, and our investment policy. Unfortunately, I have not been able to finish that policy or the investment policy in 2021. It is something that has been moved for me into 2022, but stay tuned because that is something that is near and dear to the heart. So I will be working on it early in 2022 to get it out to council. So our goal here is achieving long-term financial sustainability. So these are the things that we'll be looking at. One of the things that comes with the strategic plan is that new development charge study. This year was just an amendment. And so 2021 was an amendment. We needed to clean up a few things. There was some changes in our capital assets. However, 2023, it actually isn't due till 2024, but I think we're going to move it up to align in all of those master plans, to align in our official plan, to finally get these in a really good time. And so that the time actually makes sense and we can really build off of it. This is one of those things that is directly in our strategic plan that we really do want to achieve. So stay tuned. We're going to be managing our capital commitments and cash flows, determining the future funding needs, balancing the costs between today's residents and future residents. And we're always going to consider those short-term and long-term impacts. And I'd like to improve our budget process by outlining those a little bit more to council with specific examples like we did earlier with the strategic plan or with the budget survey results, those type of things. I really want to actually tie that in so council can get those examples. And that is it for me. So stay tuned. So the 2022 operating budget presentation is December 8th. We will have an entirely new booklet coming to council. We'll have a presentation with myself and all the directors, and then a new booklet that we've been working on that I have said that you will be very happy with. I know I have. The team has been doing such an amazing job. So at this point, I'll open it up for council questions or remarks. And all the directors, I think, are around if it's involves more than just me.
Thank you. And I can't wait for the new book. So I'll start with Councillor Cates and look around for others.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I just had a question to something that you said, Tiffany. Can you repeat what you said about the assessment? What's MPAC doing now?
Yes. So through Mayor DeVee, so the province has decided to push off the reassessment for property taxes. So you would have noticed in we didn't have any, okay, so we should have had a reassessment that was phased in over 4 years in 2021. This did not happen. And so in 2022, they have announced for next year that it also will not happen, but they also said for 2022 and 2023. So they have put it off now for 3 years. So our assessment values are based on January 1st, 2016, that were then phased in over 4 years for 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019. And then, so, or sorry, 2017, 18, 19, 20. And so our values have not changed since 2020. Your value could have changed if you had growth or a change in something on your property. So you built a new shed or barn, or so those things could have had impact. But other than that, your assessments stayed the same. So they have frozen that. That is a big part of my December 8th presentation because there are significant impacts to every municipality, but I will be talking about just Middlesex Center. So it is, they're looking at providing that financial stability for the residents, taxpayers. Was the provincial initiative.
Yeah, it's a big hit for sure. So there won't be a change in 23 either to residents' assessments.
Yeah, unless they have something growth related or they amend it, like change something.
Yeah. Thank you.
Councillor Hughes. Councillor Arts, Hugh. I'm sorry. It's been a long day. Forgive me.
Yeah, through your mayor to Tiffany. Yeah, when Sue asked the MPAC question, some of us kind of laughed, and it was because what's MPAC done? MPAC's done nothing. So we weren't laughing at you, Sue. We were laughing at MPAC. Okay. Anyways, we've talked about it. MPAC hasn't done anybody any favors by delaying this 7 years. It's gonna be there's gonna be property about. It's just gonna be not good. So anyone that thinks this was a good idea, personally, I don't think it was. So I just thought I'd put that one out there. Thank you.
Are there any questions for Tiffany? Councillor Heffernan.
To the mayor, to Tiffany.
I'm sorry, I can't hear Councillor Heffernan.
Okay, I think I'm good now. Okay, so it's to do with the debt capacity. And so the first part where it says gross debt charges, principal and interest, I'm assuming that's for the debt for the wellness center, the fire station, and the medical center, basically. And then Then down where it says additional long-term commitments. So in 2018, we already borrowed $6 million for development charges.
Yeah, so that the development charge, when we were funding the cash flow shortage, I think it did start in 2018, and it built up in 2019. In 2020, I believe we started paying it back, and then 2021, yes, which is the year we're in now, it has significantly been paid off. So it went up at the highest point to 13.3 million. I'm down to 3 million, and it is just cash flow. Development charges, it all stays within that one obligatory reserve fund, so that it also pays for the interest on that loan.
Okay. And so, and then the one projected, if it goes through, is Glendon Drive. I'm assuming we're sort of committed to that one. The Recreation Center for Ilderton. So it's got a 40-year repayment on it. And we've been told that arenas generally only have a 50-year lifespan. So I'm a little bit concerned about that, but we don't have to worry about that this time. I'm just pointing that out for now. Thanks, Tiffany.
And through you, Mayor DeVete, that is a long term, the 40 years. I believe the Wellness Center was also a 40-year term, but I would say when trying to balance, like when it was a $1.2 million annual payment, trying to balance out the operating budget was extremely difficult, even at 40 years. 20 years would have been impossible. So when we're looking at an additional principal and interest of 1.2 million, that's a significant levy increase that we would have to do in order to even pay for the principal and interest on that debt.
Councillor Arts, do you have a question?
Through your mayor to Tiffany, this was sort of elaborating on Councillor Hefferman's thing about the 40-year debt. If you did take on a project such as that, couldn't you do some of it, say on a 25-year and some of it on a 40-year, so we don't have all the debt? Like we're in that situation now where there's a lot of debt concentrated expiring in a few years. If down the road, if it's a big project, can you do something so you split the debt up so it doesn't all mature at the same time?
Yep, through you, Mayor DeVete, that is something that we can do. So normally we want to align the debt with the life of the asset is one of the main things when you're looking at it. You can do a shorter one in order to actually get it paid off quicker. So that's more of like to just help you with the liquidity of it. But yes, we can definitely do different terms of loans on a specific project to kind of split that up.
Councillor Cates.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Tiffany. So just to add on to what they said, did you not say you're talking about the Ilderton Arena, right? That we were hoping to get grants, so the money wouldn't be as much. And B, if we didn't get any grants at that time, then we would have to vote on if we were going to do it or not, right?
Yes, so through you, Mayor DeVete, that's exactly correct. So we will continue. I know our CAO and Director of Community Services have been working very hard on trying to get a grant for this project and are very hopeful and are applying for everything that they can even imagine to apply for this project. That's first and foremost. And then the decision needs to be made at council level, whether you're going to proceed with it or not. And I know that's a very large decision. If the grant doesn't happen, I do know in talking with the Director of Community Services, something does have to happen with that community center eventually, or that arena sooner rather than later. I would say especially that decision, because even the construction process is long term. I know that that asset is coming up to the end of life. So that decision, if it's not grant funded, I think there's multiple different scenarios of what you'd look at, but for funding wise, you're looking at that debt, and then council would make that decision specifically. I want to get that in front of you. I know we've talked about it. I know it's come up a lot in, say, the community services master plan, in our budget surveys. I know it's very near and dear to the hearts of the community in Ilderton. So it's always something of a topic. I think getting it out there and being as transparent as possible of what that would cost is an important part. And then obviously council would make the final decision. So at this point, there's nothing planned that this, and I think we have it in 2024, 2023. That's not a like that. Yeah, you're not signing off tonight saying that it's going to go ahead.
Thank you.
Is there anything else? I don't see any. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't see your hand, Councillor Scott. Go ahead.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Rob, if he's still there. I know you were on already, and I was just looking at a bunch of different ones, and I forgot to ask you about the Carriage Road rebuild. What would they be doing from Carriage Road? I'm assuming this from Longwoods all the way to Gideon.
Through the mayor to Councillor Scott, I had to double check the length. I believe the section that we're looking at was 800 meters long.
Okay.
And I'm not sure if that quite gets us all that full length. It's primarily focused around the hill where the guide rails are.
Okay. Okay. Perfect. Yeah, I just had somebody reach out to me about that this weekend. So anyway, I can talk in the future with you on that one.
Yep, I can shoot you a message and let you know.
Yep. Thank you.
I think that's everybody. So I just want to say thank you again, not only to you, Tiffany, but to all staff and to our committee members. It takes a lot of work to pull this together. And I think we're all waiting for installment 2 and the books. So we'll look forward to our next meeting. Thank you. Okay.
Engineers report is back on track for agenda.
So the clerk has just said that we've got Mr. DeVos online from Spreet, and that's your first agenda item tonight. So that's the Bear Creek Municipal Drain. See there? There he is. There he is. Good evening.
Hello.
Hello. Welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, good to see you. The floor is yours if you'd like to make your presentation.
Okay. And all the council members should have the drawings and the report, so I will just verbally provide a summary of what was requested and what we're proposing. This report was prepared in accordance with Section 78 of the Drainage Act, which is repair and improvement to an existing municipal drain. The requests that came in on the closed portion of branch 6 of the Bear Creek drain for its entire length, and then the lower part of branch 12 and the lower part of branch 13. Both of those branches head east off of branch 6. The landowners indicated that the design standard is over 50 years old. They wish to have improvements made. And due to the age and condition of the old drain, they didn't think it was feasible to maintain the old drain. So the request was to actually replace the pipes that are there now. So it is a replacement project with increased capacity. We are starting at the open channel and running northeast across the Stanton Farm for its entirety up to 13 Mile Road. We do have to cross the Lake Huron pipeline. Water pipeline in the middle of the Stanton Farm. We cross 13 Mile just west of Hyde Park Road, and then continue north through the Geisbers Farm, crossing the Enbridge pipelines, the gas pipelines, and then we head east across Hyde Park to the east side, continue north, and then back across Hyde Park to the west side into another area on the Geisbers property. Branch 12 is in the Stanton property. It heads east from branch 6 and crosses Hyde Park Road into the Kubler property, which has most of that farm running through that branch. Branch 13 is on the north side of 13 Mile Road, and it starts at branch 6, runs easterly across Hyde Park, continues through the Hillborough Farms property, and then southerly back across 13 Mile Road through the Kubler property up to another Stanton property further east. So there are a number of road crossings which do have to take place. There are pipeline crossings which have to take place, which all add cost to this particular project. Because of the increased cost and design to actually get across these roads and utilities, It is significantly more than what it would be without those crossings. We did have consultation with both Lake Huron Pipeline as well as Enbridge and have received their approval. There are special works that have to be done when we cross the pipelines in terms of materials, spacing, clearance. The Lake Huron Pipeline has asked for an increased clearance on their pipe from the current condition. We looked at alternatives for them and they decided to proceed with some of the increased clearance requirements. So their costs are quite significant, but they asked for us to include that as part of the proposal. The Enbridge lines are difficult to get across as well because there's several lines at different depths. And so we've had to expose them all and come up with a system that'll get between them similar to what's there, but also try to provide improved drainage for the area at the same time. And there was also approval and special drawings that have to go to Enbridge for their approval on that. So beyond that, for improvements for the farms, we are also adding and replacing existing structures to both join pipes and allow surface water entry into our system. The bigger designs have more capacity for surface water on top of the subsurface drainage or systematic tiling that farmers may put in on their lands. So it will provide increased capacity in that regard. And I think at that point, I will stop and open up to questions.
Okay, thank you for that presentation. Are there questions from council? I don't see any hands. Clearly a complex project. So if there aren't any questions, then we have a motion before us, and it is that the Council for the Municipality of Middlesex Centre receives the Bear Creek Drain Report from Mike DeVos of Spreed Associates dated September 30th, 2020, and authorizes that the project proceed, and that the Court of Revision will meet on January 5th, 2021, and further that Councillor Heffernan, Councillor Shipley, and myself will sit as members of the Court of Revision, with myself being in the chair. Could I have a mover, please, and a seconder? Deputy Mayor and Councillor Shipley, all in favor? Oh, yes, thank you. It'd be fantastic. It'd be magic. Okay, and so the date for the Court of Revision, as to make it clear, is January 5th, 2022, coming up. All right, so are you still seconding that, sir? Yes, thank you. And so all in favor? And that is carried. Thank you very much. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Okay.
Good night.
Good night. Okay, so now we can move to 8.2, which is a report from our Director of Public Works and Engineering, Rob, the water, wastewater, stormwater rate proposal, please.
Yep. Good evening again through Madam Mayor to members of council. So this is a report reviewing the proposed water, wastewater, and stormwater rates for 2022. So it's been mentioned in Tiffany's presentation that earlier in 2021 with BMA, there was a long range financial plan for the water system that was undertaken. So the requirement is to have a 6-year plan in place, but the study that was done, we actually looked at a 10-year projection. And within that study for the water, it had been projected that we were looking at 1% rate increases per year. And the other growth required in the revenues was coming from proposed growth or projected growth over that 10-year period. So in working through the budget process this year, we again looked at the budget to actuals for 2021 and previous years as well. COVID has skewed some of those numbers. So we've taken our best projections and worked forward. With that, our revenues look to be in good shape to meet our targets for reserve transfers that were outlined in the BMA report. So with that, we're proposing a 0% increase on water for 2022. However, the asset management plan that was also completed in 2021 identified much more significant rate increases that were going to be required for wastewater and stormwater. And I don't recall the numbers off the top of my head, but I think they were in the 12% range for stormwater and quite substantial for wastewater as well. The intent is in 2022 that we will do a similar exercise as was undertaken with the water system. It's not legislatively required for the wastewater and the stormwater, but we're going to undertake a similar review looking at a 10-year projection and to establish rate increases over a longer period of time. In knowing that there is likely to be substantial rate increases required in the future, we are proposing to increase the rates for 2022 2% only on the wastewater and stormwater. So obviously this affects everyone in urban areas on all three municipal services, and then those that are in unserviced areas may be only impacted by the water rate and the stormwater, or in some cases only the stormwater rates. So the one chart in the report gives a bit of a summary looking at the water usage and to see what the impact would be on property owners between 2021 and 2022. So for a property that uses 96 cubic meters of water, the increase is about $15 a year. That's combined. So that's the increase of the wastewater and the stormwater as well. And that's about a 1.2% increase. And then the higher the water usage, the lower the percent increase because the water being 0% and kind of reduces that with a greater usage. So we look at a usage of 360 cubic meters per year, so 30 cubic meters per month, which would be probably the equivalent of maybe a 6-member family. We're looking at a $33 increase on the year, or a 1.1% increase. For those that are stormwater only, they're looking at the highest percent increase, which is 2%, but equates to less than a $4 per year increase. So the intent of these rate increases is to continue the adequate funding for these services, and what, like I said, we will look at a more longer term rate projection for wastewater and stormwater in 2022. I'm happy to answer any questions that council may have.
Thank you for that presentation. I will open it to questions. Councillor Heffernan.
Through the mayor to Rob, just checking my. So basically, for most residential houses, it would be probably about $15 a year, the increase, like in the urban areas.
Yeah, that's right. And that $15 to $33 per year. So for example, I think my family's usage is probably in that 23 cubic meters a month, which would be in that probably about $22 per year impact.
Okay. The other thing I noted was on the report, the BMA.
I'm sorry, I can no longer hear. Councilor Heffernan?
Now I can go. Okay. My microphone doesn't want to cooperate. So on page 4 of the BMA presentation, it indicated that there is a need to recover growth-related costs not recoverable from DCs. And so I guess my concern there is, and this is not particularly related to this specific topic, just that growth is supposed to pay for growth, and that we've been told that all the way through. And yet here is a consultant that's saying it's not in this particular case. So anyway, I'm just hoping we can still keep the rates as low as possible, but maybe increase those DCs again. Thanks.
Do you want to respond to that?
Sure, through Madam Mayor to Councilor Heffernan. So the one thing, I'd have to have a discussion with them just to, I guess, better understand what they're referring to. But one of the growth related costs, so an example would be if a developer came in and required an increase in water main size, and they would have a growth component that would be DC fundable because of the increase in size. The replacement of our asset that's in the ground, we would be required to pay for the replacement of the used asset. So let's say the asset was 50% through its life cycle, we would be expected to pay that portion for that asset. So we would be paying it out earlier than we typically would if we were waiting for the full life cycle of the asset. So it's so even though there are some growth related costs, there can be benefits from that as well, and that we're replacing something early, but we're only funding part of the cost, if that makes sense.
Thank you for that. Anyone else? I don't see any questions on that one. I think the next report is yours as well, Rob, if you'd like to. Oh, sorry, I forgot about the motion. Pardon me. For 8.2, the motion is that report, Public Works and Engineering 41, 2021, regarding 2022 water, wastewater, and stormwater rate proposal be received, and that the 2022 water rates remain unchanged from the 2021 water rate, and that the 2022 wastewater and stormwater rates be increased 2% over the 2021 wastewater and stormwater rates. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Arts and Councillor Cates, all in favor? And that is carried. Thank you, everyone. Okay, the floor is yours with the next report.
Great. So this is a staff report following up on the presentation that was provided by Mr. Wilcox from the St. Clair Conservation Authority back in September. His presentation was regarding the desired decommissioning study for the Coldstream Dam and a dam in Strathroy as well. So St. Clair Conservation Authority was looking for funding from the municipality in support of the study. They would be applying for funding through the WECI program from the MNRF as well, which matches funds. So they would be eligible for up to 50% of the cost. They're projecting that the cost of the study is about $40,000. St. Clair Conservation Foundation would be funding $10,000 of the 40. We would match with $10,000, and then the MNRF through the WECI program would match the other $20,000 for the combined total of $40,000. So the study is intended to look at the implications of keeping the dam in place or the benefits of removal. I won't go into detail. Mr. Wilcox had outlined a number of the reasons and the changes over the years as far as water quality and reasons for potential removal of the dam. So this is a recommendation for the municipality to fund St. Clair Conservation Authority in their endeavor for the study. And happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for that presentation. Questions on the report? I don't see any. So the motion before us is that report, Public Works Engineering number 42, 2021 Coldstream Dam decommissioning study request for funding be received, and that the funding request from the St. Clair Regional Conservation Authority be approved in the amount of $10,000 as a contribution towards infrastructure funded through the Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry's Water and Erosion Control Infrastructure Capital Cost Share Program. And further, that staff be directed to prepare correspondence and issue payment to the above noted organization upon confirmation that the St. Clair River Conservation Authority receives approval for the WECI program funding application through the Ontario government. Is there a mover and a seconder? Councillor Heffernan and Councillor Shipley, all in favor? And that is carried. Thank you very much for that presentation, Rob. We are going to move now to Marion, our county planner, to present the report on the zoning bylaw amendment for 14375 Medway Road.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and Council, and I'll quickly share my screen with everyone. Okay, so in April 2021, the municipality received an application for a zoning bylaw amendment for the lands known as 14375 Medway Road in Arva. The application was presented at the May 2021 meeting. The applicant is proposing to rezone the lands from urban residential first density to an urban residential third density zone, which would be a site-specific zone for the proposal on the lands. So as you can see on the location map, The lands are located on the south side of Medway Road and east of Arva Street. The lands are approximately 0.62 acres in area and contain a single detached dwelling. A majority of the lands to the south, west, and north are residential. There are some commercial lands that are located along Medway Road immediately to the west, as well as institutional uses to the east and to the north as well. So the initial concept that was before council in May 2021 was to permit the development of 6 townhouse units, and the sketch that was provided by the applicant was to orient the 6 units to back onto the high school property and face some of the residential lands to the west. The development would have used that existing driveway access off Medway Road and create a driveway to the rest of the units. The development would have been serviced by municipal sanitary and water services as well. And I will note at the time that the applicant's sketch did not provide any details in terms of design elements, landscaping, or stormwater management, as those items would have been addressed through site plan review. So as a result of the feedback from public and the council, the applicant revised their plan to propose 4 townhouse dwelling units that would now orient and front onto Medway Road. And I'll quickly share my screen and hopefully everyone can see the new site plan. Additionally, the conceptual elevation plans that were attached to the planning report would show that the townhouse units would be approximately 2 stories in height as well. Again, the existing access off Medway Road would be retained, but would need to be widened to accommodate access to and from the site and be wide enough for passing vehicles. The revised conceptual plan also shows some visitor parking spaces at the front of Medway Road and some landscaping elements between the roadway and parking. Based on this revised plan, the requested zoning generally meets the intent of the PPS and the county official plan for infilling and intensification on existing lots with full municipal services and access to higher travel roadways. The official plan also supports the revised orientation of the buildings towards the roadway. However, staff will review the location of landscaping as well as the parking area to minimize the appearance of vehicles from Medway Road. So the applicant revised their rezoning request, and the site-specific zone would include permitted uses that would only contain townhouse units and as well as accessory uses. There would be an increased minimum front yard setback of 15 meters, and this takes into account any county road dedications, and it is a greater setback than the standard or the general urban residential 3rd density zone. There's also an increased minimum side yard setback of 5 meters and 0 meters between the units. Maximum number of dwelling units, which is limited to 4 dwelling units on this property, and this is the equivalent density of approximately 16 units per hectare based on the existing lot size, and a maximum height for the units of 10 meters instead of the 20 meters that is permitted in the UR3 zone or 12 meters in the UR1 zone. So the initial application was circulated to area residents, staff, and agencies in accordance with the Planning Act at the time of the public meeting, and the comments are included in the staff report. Additionally, staff had sent a notification to residents who requested to be notified ahead of the meeting tonight. Staff received 1 letter from a member of the public in opposition to the rezoning request, citing concerns related to compatibility, design aesthetics, decreasing property values, removal of mature trees, as well as the wildlife habitat on the current lot. There was a concern that the development would establish a precedent for ARVA, and additionally, there were concerns that were raised related to logistics of the site, specifically garbage pickup, traffic, construction during development, as well as post-development, and impacts on municipal servicing. As mentioned previously at the May 2021 public meeting, Building and Public Works and Engineering reviewed this application and they don't have any objections. Detailed site comments would be addressed through site plan review. And site plan review would address everything, including access, servicing, stormwater management, and snow removal as well. Additionally, Public Works and Engineering provided a general comment that the servicing agreement with the City of London is limited to approximately 5 units per year, and confirmation would need to be provided prior to any development plans. The county engineer also provided comments as the property is fronting onto a county road. They don't have any concerns specifically with the rezoning request, but have noted to the landowner that they may need to dedicate up to 15 meters from the constructed center line of the road. As well, they would have to address the smaller or narrower width along the driveway. And lastly, we did circulate to the Thames Valley District School Board, and they advised they had no concerns with the rezoning application itself. However, they would like to see some fencing around the property should the rezoning be approved. The planning staff did review the merits of the application and generally finds it consistent and meets the intent of the official plan policies for residential areas as well as for multiple dwelling units within Middlesex Center. And the development supports the municipality's direction for dental intensification where it is appropriate. The development of the 4 townhouses are appropriately located on a major roadway with little disruption to the existing community streets. It's within proximity to amenities, including parks, school, commercial uses, and is generally small in scale. With regard to the conceptual site plan, planning staff will note concern again with the location of the parking area that's fronting onto Medway Road. Additionally, there is some concern that the garages project beyond the front face of the dwelling units. And I will say that the official plan does contain some direction to minimize the appearance of vehicles and promote a pedestrian-friendly and safe design. And this is when we are reviewing the development applications. Additionally, staff do recommend that holding symbols H2 and H6 be applied to the lands. This requires a site plan agreement to be entered into with the municipality and requires a public site plan review process prior to any development. So as a result of the previously noted, planning staff determined that the amended zoning bylaw amendment is consistent with the provincial policy statement, county official plan, and Middlesex Center official plan, and recommend that the lands be rezoned to a new site-specific urban residential third density exception 17 zone with holding symbols H2 and H6. And I'll be happy to answer any questions at this time.
Thank you for that presentation. I will look to councillors for questions. No, Councillor Arts.
Through, excuse me, through you, Madam Mayor to Marion. We've had this before where, you know, developer comes up with a concept, looks pretty good, but once we give them a zoning change, they kind of got the green light to do what they actually wanted to do. So I've got nothing wrong with what I'm looking at, but I don't know, will the holding symbols H2 and H6 guarantee the developer is going to actually do what's been presented? And if not, well, if there's no guarantee that they're going to go through with what they say, I won't support it. But I was just curious if H2 and H6 will actually address my concerns. Thank you.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor Arts, the H2 and H6 are intended to be applied so that the municipality has a bit of control and direction towards the development of the site, and the municipality essentially will have the ability to approve any development and have that control to say what occurs on the site, as well as the H6 for the public site plan review process. I included that to be added to the zoning in order for council and for the public to be able to review what will actually be proposed and at the time of site plan review, so that it is transparent throughout the whole process.
Clarification on anything?
I think it's sinking in. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Heffernan.
Through the mayor to Marion. I do like this configuration better than the first one that was presented, but I wonder why, and this might be looked after in the site plan. I'm just concerned that we're putting a parking lot in there for 12 vehicles for 4 townhouses when they already have a 2-car garage each, it looks like, and plus the driveway. I think there would be concern that there would be parking spillover from perhaps the school. And also I'd question why it doesn't make sense that we need that much parking. And also, I don't like the idea of tearing down a house and then putting in 4 townhouses, but nevertheless, it can be done. So just concerned with the design, I guess, the design itself, like you said, the town or the garages stick out a bit, and I don't know if that particular design fits in with the area, but that's just a personal opinion. So anyway, I was just concerned about the parking mostly. Thanks.
Do you want to respond to the parking question?
Sure, through
Where's
you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor Heffernan. So the parking, we will address through site plan review. And again, there is direction within the official plan, which definitely does not support this type of location for parking. I think the applicant was, heard the comments loud and clear from the public meeting about the lack of visitor parking and the worry that there would be parking along Arva Street and into the neighborhood area. So they did try to accommodate some of the parking on site. However, I don't know if they'll be able to accommodate the full 12 parking spaces that you see here. Again, it is conceptual and subject to change, but they will try to accommodate some additional visitor parking spaces on site in addition to the private parking spaces for each unit.
Is there anyone else? Councillor Shipley?
Thank you. Through the mayor, and just a comment, Marion. His own personal comment. I'm just not sure I want to start down this road of putting condos in with a bunch of houses. To me, this is going to look totally out of place with the houses that are there now. There is possible development going to happen west of Arva. I think these ideas would be more suited down in an area like that where it's all starting out new with new development. I'm just not fussy on putting this development in where the houses are in the older part of Arva. That's the comment. Thank you.
That's called intensification.
Is there anyone else? Okay, seeing none, we do have a motion before us that zoning bylaw amendment ZBA 10/2021 as amended for the property legally known as Plan 63, Lot 21 to 22, and municipally as 14375 Medway Road be filed by Matthew Thompson be approved. Do I have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Cates and Councillor Arts, all in favor? And opposed? And that motion is carried. Thank you. And now we can go to 9. Oh, sorry. Yes, we're done that. We have what is it, 5 or 6 here? 5, right. So we're going to move to the committee adjustment. The motion is that council adjourn its regular meeting in order to sit as a committee of adjustment under section 45 of the Planning Act as amended to consider the minor variance applications listed on the November 24th, 2021 agenda. And just to start things off, members of the public that are participating virtually in this evening's public meetings have previously provided notification to the municipal clerk in advance of the meeting. If anyone wishes further notification of any of the minor variance applications being considered tonight, I ask that you please send an email to planning@middlesexcenter.on.ca requesting further notification. Please be advised that comments expressed and written material presented are a matter of public record for full disclosure. If you have questions on any of the applications being heard this evening, we ask that you direct those to the appropriate planner on file. Members of the public that have requested to speak will be given a maximum of 5 minutes to address council and provide comments on the applications. In keeping with our procedural bylaw and our R-zone policy, I would remind all of our meeting participants to use respectful language and uphold our values of cooperation, trust, and openness. So the order of proceedings is that I will ask the planner to explain the purpose of the application and hearing and to present the staff report. The applicant or their agent has the opportunity to speak to the application. Any members of the public who have registered to participate will be asked for their comments and questions. Please ensure you state your name and address so that comments can be reflected in the minutes. The municipal clerk will provide any additional comments received from circulated agencies in the public not included in the planning report. The committee then has an opportunity to ask questions of the applicant and or staff. and then we will consider motions regarding the applications. So the first item up is a minor variance. Dan Fitzgerald, our planner, will be giving an overview of that report, please. Welcome, Dan.
Thanks, Mayor and members of the committee. So the purpose and effect of this application for minor variance is to seek relief from the comprehensive zoning bylaw as it does relate to the maximum permissible gross floor area, as well as reduced interior and rear yard setbacks for an accessory building that is located in the urban residential first density exception 1 zone. The applicant is requesting a maximum size of 29.02 square meters or 312 square feet, which is also 5.4% lot coverage, whereas the bylaw currently permits a maximum size of the lesser of 50 square meters of gross floor area or 3% lot coverage, which in this particular case would be a maximum permissible size based on 3% lot coverage of 15.87 square meters. Additionally, the applicant is also requesting to reduce the required interior as well as rear yard setbacks for the accessory building to 0.6 meters or 2 feet, whereas the zoning bylaw does require a minimum setback of 1.5 meters on both sides. The effect of the proposal is to facilitate the construction of one accessory building, which is described as a shed. Everyone can see that. The subject property is located at 78 Wood Lily Lane in Ilderton. It maintains frontage of approximately 17.5 meters on Wood Lily Lane and an area of approximately 530 square meters, which is compliance with requirements of the underlying zoning. The lands currently contain an existing single detached dwelling. They are surrounded on all sides by residential lands in the format of single detached dwellings. They are designated settlement area in the county official plan, residential in Middlesex Center's official plan, and they are zoned urban residential first density exception 1 zone in Middlesex Center's zoning bylaw. So as noted, no comments were received from the public during circulation of the application, and we didn't receive any objections from any agencies. Planning does note that we did receive comments subsequent to writing of the report from the chief building official regarding conditions requested to be added to the application, both of which relate to the clarification regarding the requirement of an eaves trough, as well as the clarification on the restriction of an encroachment of an eave into the both interior and rear side yard setbacks. These conditions have been added or have been provided to the clerk in advance of the meeting, and they are summarized as follows. So we are requesting that the following conditions be added: that any eave line for the proposed accessory building shall not project closer than 0.6 meters and into an interior or rear yard property line, and that the applicant be required to install an eaves trough on the sides of the building, which will be 0.6 meters from an interior or rear yard property line, and that the downspouts for the eaves troughs be directed away from adjacent properties in order to eliminate the impact of roof water onto neighboring properties. So staff note that the intent of the applicant is to construct an accessory building for storage and to act as pool house to hold the pool equipment. The proposal to reduce the interior and rear yard setbacks as well as the height are considered to meet the 4 acts of the planning test, or sorry, 4 tests of the Planning Act for minor variance. Therefore, I am recommending that the minor variance application A35-2021 be approved, subject to the conditions that I outlined in this presentation. So thank you, and I'm certainly available for any questions that may arise.
And just before I go to questions, for the purpose of clarity, this is number 9.2 in your agenda. Okay. All right, there we go. We're all on the same page. So the owners in this case are Shane and Ashley Hanna. They are available for questions if we have them. The clerk has not received any comments from anyone. I'm wondering, are there questions from members of the committee? Yes, Councillor Cates.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Dan. So I just want to clarify. So they want to put their buildings 2 feet less closer than they're supposed, 2 feet 9 less. They're supposed to be 4.9 and they want to do 2.9. So they're going to be 2 feet closer. That's where the eaves troughs come in, right?
Through the chair to council. Yeah, so the existing bylaw standard is a 1.5 meter setback, so approximately 4.9 feet. They are requesting to reduce that to 0.6 meters, both on the interior and rear yard, which would basically be 2 feet. The existing standard in the zoning bylaw does permit an encroachment for an eave into that 1.5 meter setback, which is to a maximum of 0.6 meters based on the permitted encroachment section. So we're just clarifying that if you're going to build the wall of the accessory building at 2 meters, if approved for the reduction of the variance, that you effectively can't encroach any further with a eave projection into that space. So you still have to maintain 0.6 meters for the eave line of the building. And then further that within that 0.6 meters, you do have to have an eaves trough to redirect water onto your property and not to affect adjacent properties as well.
Okay, you're saying 0.6, but that's what I just want to clarify. Relief requested 0.9 of meters, 2.9 feet, where normally it would be 4.9 feet.
Correct.
Okay, and then almost twice as big for the pool, for the block coverage. Okay, thank you.
Okay, is that okay? Okay, so we're all set now? No one else has questions? Okay, so I'm just, do you want to read the whole thing? Yes, we have 2 conditions that are not included in our documents, so I'm just going to have the clerk read it because we've amended that, so it'll be clear, okay?
So through the chair, thank you for that. And I'll read out the full motion with the addition of the 2 conditions that were presented by the planner in their report. And that motion is that minor variance application A35 2021 filed by Shane and Ashley Hanna for relief from the comprehensive zone open bylaw in order to establish a north interior side yard setback of 0.6 meters, 2 feet, and a rear yard setback of 0.6 meters, 2 feet for an accessory building, whereas the zoning bylaw requires a minimum interior side yard and rear yard setback for an accessory building of 1.5 meters, 4.9 feet, and to permit a maximum size of 29.02 square meters or 312 square feet, or 5.4% lot coverage for the accessory building, whereas the comprehensive zoning bylaw permits a maximum size of the lesser of 50 square meters, or 3% lot coverage, for a property municipally known as 78 Woodlily Lane be granted, subject to the following 2 conditions: that any eave line for the proposed accessory building shall not project closer than 0.6 meters to the interior and rear yard property lines, and that the applicant be required to install an eaves trough on the sides of the building, which will be 0.6 meters from an interior or rear yard property line, and that the downspouts be directed away from adjacent properties in order to eliminate the impact of roof water onto neighboring properties. And further, that the reasons for granting the minor variance application A35 2021 are that the request complies with the general intent and purpose of the official plan, the comprehensive zoning bylaw, the request is minor in nature, and the request represents appropriate development on the subject property. Thank you, and I'll turn it over to the chair to seek a mover and seconder for that motion.
Thank you very much. And I'm looking for mover and seconder. Deputy Mayor Brennan, Councillor Heffernan, all in favor? And that is carried. Thank you very much. We'll go to number 9.1 now, which is Dennis Basic, file A39 2021, that one. Okay, so I will turn it over to Dan again. This is his file, and if you'd like to present the report.
Through the chair to members of the committee, I apologize for that. I was just going by the report numbers. I didn't realize that there was a different order of the report numbers, and but I do have the report here for A39. So the purpose and effect of this application for minor variance is to seek relief from the comprehensive zoning bylaw, as it does relate to the maximum permissible gross floor area of an accessory building in the urban residential first density zone. The applicant is requesting a maximum size of 50.2 square meters or 5.8% lot coverage in this case for all accessory buildings. Whereas the bylaw permits a maximum size of the lesser of 50 square meters or 3% lot coverage. So the effect of the proposal is to facilitate the construction of an accessory building for the intended purpose of housing pool equipment as well as storage and an associated outdoor covered seating area as well. So the subject property in this case is located at 69 Lockheed Lane in Kilworth. The land in question has a frontage of approximately 15.35 meters or 50 feet and an area of approximately 860 square meters. It does comply with the requirements of the urban residential first density exception UR1 -38 zone. The subject lands again are located in Kilworth. It's surrounded on all sides by residentially designated lands intended for residential development as part of the Kilworth Heights West subdivision. It is designated settlement area in the county official plan, as well as residential in Middlesex Center's official plan. And again, is zoned an urban residential first density exception 38 zone in the bylaw. So as per the minor variance request, the applicant is seeking to increase the maximum permissible size by 24.5 meters or an additional, square meters or an additional 2.8% lot coverage in this case. No comments were received from the public during circulation of the application. It did not receive any objections from agencies. I do, however, note that upon writing the report, I did receive an additional comment again from the chief building official on this file, which did request the addition of another condition for the approval. And this condition does read as follows: so that the applicant provide a lot grading plan with the proposed building and swimming pool location with elevations plotted. The plan shall be reviewed and stamped by the developer's engineer. And this is specific to this particular portion of the subdivision not being under ownership, I guess, of the township at this point in time, or not assumed. Subdivision is not assumed. So staff note that the intent of the applicant is to construct a new accessory building, which is located at the rear of the property and for the stated purpose of a pool equipment storage building, as well as a large covered outdoor seating area. So as noted in the planning report, the proposal does meet the intent of the four tests in the Planning Act. And so given the above, and as indicated, I am recommending that the minor variance application A39-2021 be approved, subject to the condition that was listed in the planning report, as well as the additional condition that I did note tonight in the presentation. So thank you, and certainly available for any questions.
Thank you for that report. The applicant, Mr. Basic, is available for questions. And again, no comments have been received by the clerk. I will look to the committee then for any questions or clarifications. I don't see any. And as there is another condition added to the motion, as in the last situation, I'm going to ask the clerk to read the revised.
Through the chair, thank you. And I'll read the full motion before turning it back over to the chair to ask for a mover and seconder. The motion before us is that minor variance application A39-21 filed by Dennis Bassick for relief from the zoning bylaw in order to establish a maximum size of 50.2 square meters or 5.8% lot coverage for all accessory buildings, whereas the zoning bylaw permits a maximum size of the lesser 50 square meters close floor area or 3% lot coverage for property municipally known as 69 Lockheed Lane be granted, subject to the following two conditions: that the design of the proposed accessory building and the location be substantially in accordance with the plans attached to the report and the decision, and that the applicant provide a lot grading plan with the proposed building and swimming pool locations with elevations plotted. These plans shall be reviewed and stamped by the developer's engineer. And further, that the reasons for granting minor variance application A39-2021 include that the request complies with the general intent of the official plan and comprehensive zoning bylaw. The request is minor in nature and does represent appropriate development of a subject property.
Mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Cates and Councillor Shipley, all in favor? And that is carried. Thank you, everyone. We can move to application number A36, 2021, Eddie and Kim Hunter.
Through Mayor to members of the committee. So the purpose and effect of the application for minor variance before committee today is to seek relief from the zoning bylaw, as it does relate to the maximum permissible size for an accessory building that is located in the agricultural A1 zone. The applicant is requesting a maximum size for accessory buildings on the land of 315 square meters or 3% lot coverage, whereas the zoning bylaw permits the maximum size of the lesser of 165 square meters or 3% lot coverage for lots that are greater than 5,000 square meters or 1.25 acres. The effect of the proposal is to facilitate the construction of an addition to an existing accessory building, which is for the stated purpose of an additional storage area as well as a hobby or workshop. So the subject property, as committee may remember, is located at 13285 Medway Road. It's approximately 2.6 acres in area with a frontage of 55 meters on Medway. It's located on the south side of Medway, west of the intersection at Medway and Hyde Park Road. The lands currently contain a single detached dwelling, as well as an existing accessory structure, which is approximately 185.8 square meters. So as noted, the applicant previously applied for a minor variance seeking approval for a maximum size of 335 square meters, which was refused by the committee. As such, the amended request has reduced the size of the accessory building by 20 square meters, which now represents a 3% lot coverage for the accessory building. It is bordered by large lot agricultural lands on all sides and is designated agricultural area in the county official plan, agricultural in Middlesex Center's official plan, and is zoned, again, agricultural A1 in Middlesex Center's comprehensive zoning bylaw. We did not receive any comments upon circulation of the revised application, and we did not receive any objections. So I note that the intent of the applicant is to construct an addition to an existing accessory building, which is located along the east interior side yard behind the main dwelling. Based on the revised plan for the building, staff are satisfied that the proposal could meet the intent of the foretest of the minor variance as listed in the Planning Act. However, this is subject to the 5 conditions that are recommended and listed in the planning report. So as such, planning staff are recommending that the proposal be granted, subject to those 5 conditions. So thank you, and I'm certainly available to answer.
Thank you. We do have Matt Campbell, who would like to speak on as the agent for the applicant. So if Matt's there, there we go.
Good evening, Madam Mayor. Can everyone hear me okay?
We can hear you. The floor is yours, Matt.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Thanks to Dan for the presentation. I believe Dan has covered off everything that I otherwise would have said. Just want to reiterate that, yes, this is essentially a modified or resubmission of a application that was previously decided upon. And what we did is, we took the committee's decision and said, okay, well, let's look at scaling this back to something that would be more in line with the intent of the zoning bylaw, hence complying with the 3% coverage. So that's the intent of the submission. We're certainly satisfied with the staff report and are agreeable to the conditions that Dan is recommending. I'm available for any comments or questions if the committee has any at this time.
Thank you for that. No comments have been received from the agencies or other people, so we can move now to the committee and see if there are any questions. So councillors, the floor is yours. We'll start with Councillor Arts.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I want to make it plain to the applicant that this is residential related storage. There's no commercial, no industrial, no renting it out for space. So they have to, I don't know what the buildings were before, but with this minor variance, they're gonna follow of what they're supposed to be for now. Thank you. Bye.
Shipley?
I think Councilor Arts pretty much covered it, other than maybe one question. Excuse me. My understanding that the owner does have gravel trucks. Are they gonna end up back at this location?
Madam Mayor, is that a question I can respond to?
Yeah, I think you're the only one who can.
Okay. Sorry, I usually only react if I'm called upon to speak at committee meetings. So thank you for the opportunity to answer that question. My understanding, based on discussions with the applicant, is that this accessory building is solely for the purpose of personal storage. The hunters have various pieces of recreational equipment that they want to store there. And as Dan has made it very clear in some of the comments already this evening, we fully recognize that this is intended for personal residential storage. This is not a commercial operation in any way. The zone does not permit a commercial use, and it is not intended that any part of this accessory building be rented out to a third party. Again, this is solely for the personal use of the hunters.
Okay, thank you, Matt.
Is there anyone else? In that case, I have a couple of comments. I take your point that the current residents are eager to comply and to live within the letter of the law. There is a condition that the owner warrants that the accessory building should be used for this. And I'm comfortable that this owner will warrant. I'm always concerned about these buildings and future uses. If and when that property is sold, how will that warrant be and condition be understood by purchasers down the line? I don't know if the planner can answer that. Is there a condition or something attached to the property that says this is strictly residential use for storage, not a business? A bad planning decision, I think, has come back to bite us on more than one occasion. So it's the future I'm more worried about. I don't know, Dan or?
Yeah, so through the chair, the mayor, so you are correct in that when we reviewed the application, we did have concerns related to the potential size and whether or not it could be attractive, for a business to locate itself in this particular instance. However, I would note that the property is zoned agricultural A1, and your existing zoning bylaw standards do not permit home occupations or any type of commercial use in accessory buildings at this particular point in time. So they wouldn't be, even these owners or even future owners would not be permitted to do so. I'm not saying that someone may not try to do it in the future. It could be very well possible. However, they would be then subject to enforcement. The municipality does not permit that. And then the other thing I would note is that when it comes to structures or uses of lands, it applies to the land in general, not to the users of the lands. So any type of restrictions or conditions that are attached to this particular site, any future owners would also be subject to that.
Okay, so I understand the concept of subject to. I'm not clear that it will be clear to any purchaser that in fact that there is a warrant requested to have this change made going forward. So yeah, okay. I think the answer is there is no good answer, and I'll have to accept that. Thank you. Is there anyone else who has a question or concern? No. Okay, in that case, we do have a motion before us that the minor variance application A36 2021 filed by Matt Campbell on behalf of Eddie and Kimberly Hunter for relief from the zoning bylaw in order to establish a maximum size for all accessory buildings on the land of 315 square meters or 3% lot coverage, whereas the zoning bylaw permits a maximum size of the lesser of 165 square meters or gross floor area of 3% lot coverage for lots larger than 1.25 acres for a property municipally known as 13285 Medway Road be granted, subject to the 5 conditions noted in the report, and further, that the reasons for approving minor variance application A36 2021 include: the request is considered to comply with the general intent and purpose of the comprehensive zoning bylaw and official plan. The request is considered to be minor in nature, subject to the conditions listed in the report, and the request represents appropriate development on the subject property subject to the conditions listed in the report. Do I have a mover and a seconder? Deputy Mayor Brennan and Councillor Shipley, all in favor? And opposed? That's me.
Pardon me.
Yep, I'm consistent. Okay, so thank you for that report, and we can now move to 9.4. This is file A37 with Paul and Pam Casali. Or Casali. Casali, pardon me.
Through the chair, thank you, Mayor, members of the committee. So the purpose of this minor variance is to seek relief from the zoning bylaw, as it does relate to the maximum permissible gross floor area for an accessory building that's also located in the agricultural A1 zone. The applicant is requesting a maximum size for all accessory buildings on the land of 208 square meters or 4.9% lot coverage, whereas Middlesex Center's comprehensive zoning bylaw permits a maximum size of the lesser of 110 square meters or a gross or 3% lot coverage for lots that are a maximum size of below 1 hectare in land or 1.25 acres in land area. The effect of the proposal is to facilitate the construction of an addition to an existing accessory building for the stated purpose of additional storage. So the subject property is located at 10306 Sinclair Drive. It has a frontage of approximately 58 meters on Sinclair and an area of approximately 1.05 acres, which would be considered a legally non-complying lot in the agricultural A1 zone due to the size as well as frontage requirements. It is located on the northwest side of Sinclair, southwest of the intersection at Sinclair and Egremont. The lands currently contain a single detached dwelling, as well as an existing accessory building, which is approximately 163.5 square meters. They are proposing to increase the maximum permissible size by 98 square meters, or representative of an additional 1.9% lot coverage. So it is bordered by large lot residential lands, agricultural residential lands to the north and south, and industrial use to the west or rear of the property, and agricultural lands to the east. It's designated agricultural area in the county official plan, agricultural in Middlesex Center's official plan, and is zoned an agricultural A1 zone in the Middlesex Center comprehensive zoning bylaw. So upon circulation, we did not receive any comments from the public, and no staff or agencies did state any objections to the request. Staff note that the intent of the applicant is to construct, in addition to the existing accessory building, located along the north interior side yard behind the main dwelling. Based on the revised plan for the building, staff are satisfied that the proposal could meet the intent of the 4 tests of minor variance as listed in the Planning Act. Again, subject to the conditions as recommended in the planner's report. So as such, planning staff are recommending the proposal be granted, subject to the 4 conditions as listed. Thank you, and certainly available to answer any questions.
Thank you for presenting that, Dan. The applicants are available for questions, and no additional comments have been received by the clerk. Does the committee have any questions on this application? Councillor Heffernan.
Through the mayor to Dan, what is the square footage of the house? It looks awfully close to the size of the building when it's got the addition added on.
Through the chair to Councillor Heffernan. So as stipulated in the report, I believe it's like 1 or 2 square meters above the requested size of the accessory building. However, to ensure that it does remain subordinate to the principal residence, I have included a condition that basically regardless of the size that you approve here today, it can't exceed the size of the single family home. So hopefully that helps
Thank you.
reduce any potential concerns that anyone might have.
Dan, could I just ask, that would be the footprint of the house. It's a two-story house. Or is it the square footage of the total house?
Through the chair, we typically review it as a footprint of the house, not the overall square footage of the entire structure. Certainly the overall square footage of the structure would well exceed the size of the requested accessory building. However, because we view it as footprint, we weren't exactly sure that it is smaller, but confident that at least the inclusion of an additional condition will, at least at time of a building permit, if passed, require that the applicant confirm what that maximum size of the home is at a particular point in time.
Thank you. Are there other questions? Councillor Cates.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I just wanted to make a general comment. I was thinking between this one and the last one and others we've had in the past, can't help but wonder if the increase in all the theft, you know, the rural thefts and stuff, if it makes for people think I'm just going to build something, you know, build some storage that's a little bit more secure. Just a comment.
Anyone else? This is specifically mentioned actually in the applicant's comments, is it not? This is the report that mentions the security issue. Yeah, as I recall, the content was that the applicant was wanting security for personal effects. Yes. Okay. And it's a full 1,000 square feet smaller than the last one. Okay, if no one else has questions, then I can call, I'll move to the motion. And that is that minor variance application A37 2021 filed by Paul and Pam Caselli for relief from the zoning bylaw in order to establish a maximum size for all accessory buildings on the land of 208 square meters or 4.9 lot coverage, whereas the zoning bylaw permits a maximum size of the lesser of 110 square meters or a gross floor area of 3% lot coverage for a property municipally known as 10306 Sinclair Drive be granted subject to the 4 conditions noted in the report. And further, that the reasons for approving the minor variance application A37 2021 include the request is considered to comply with the general intent and purpose of Middlesex Center's comprehensive zoning bylaw and official plan. The request is considered to be minor in nature, subject to the conditions listed in the report, and the request represents appropriate development on the subject property subject to the conditions listed in this report. Do I have a mover and a seconder for this? Councillor Cates, Councillor Heffernan, all in favor? And opposed? Okay, that is carried then. Thank you. Moving on to the last one, 9.5, and that is file A38 2021. And Dan, if you would give your report, please. Oh, sorry, 9 point. That was it. I'm right. Oh, okay. Keep going.
Oh, you're right. Dan may present.
Dan may present the next one. Okay.
Through the chair to members of the committee. So item 9.5 on the agenda, application for a minor variance A38/2021. The purpose of the minor variance is to seek relief from the comprehensive zoning bylaw as it relates to, again, the maximum permissible gross floor area for an accessory building in the A1 zone. The applicant is requesting a maximum size for all accessory buildings on the land of 71.3 square meters, or in this case, 4.3% lot coverage. Whereas the bylaw permits a maximum size of the lesser of 55 square meters or 3% lot coverage. So the effect of the proposal is to facilitate the construction of a new accessory building for the stated purpose of a detached. So the subject property is located at 15053 Medway Road. It has frontage of approximately 46 meters on Medway and an area of approximately 0.46 acres, which again is considered legally non-complying. A legally non-complying lot in the agricultural A1 zone, effectively due to the size as well as the frontage requirements. It is located on the south side of Medway, west of the intersection at Medway and Highbury Road North. The lands currently contain a single detached dwelling as well as an existing accessory structure. The applicant is proposed to remove the existing building and increase the size of a new accessory building to 71 square meters. Based on their request, they are proposing to increase the maximum size by 21 square meters, or represented as an additional 1.3% lot coverage. It is bordered by large residential lots to the east, south, and west, as well as agricultural lands to the north. It's designated agricultural area in the county official plan, agricultural in Middlesex Center's official plan, and it is zoned agricultural A1 in the zoning bylaw. So during circulation of the application, we did not receive any comments from the public, as well as did not receive any objections to the request by staff agencies. But I do note that the intent of the applicant is to construct a new accessory building, which is located on the east interior side yard, behind the main dwelling on the lands. So based on the revised plan for the building, staff are satisfied that the proposal does meet the intent of the foretest for a minor variance of the Planning Act, subject to the recommended conditions in the planning report. So as such, I am recommending that the proposal be granted, subject to those conditions. So thank you.
Thank you for that report, Dan. The applicants, Jason Linfield is available for answering questions. There are no comments received by the clerk. Are there questions from any committee members? I don't see any hands. So the motion before us is that minor variance application A38, 2021, filed by Jason Linfield for relief from the zoning bylaw in order to establish maximum size for all accessory buildings on the land of 71.3 square meters or 4.3% lot coverage, whereas the zoning bylaw permits a maximum size of lesser of 55 square meters or 3% lot coverage for a property municipally known as 15053 Medway Road be granted, subject to the following conditions: that the accessory building shall not exceed the size of a single detached dwelling, and further that the reasons for approving the minor variance application include that the request is considered to comply with the general intent and purpose of the Middlesex Center Comprehensive Zoning Bylaw and official plan. The request is considered to be minor in nature, subject to the conditions listed in the report, and the request represents appropriate development on the subject property, subject to the conditions listed in the report. Could I have a mover, please, and a seconder? Councillor Shipley and Councillor Heffernan, all in favor? And that is carried. Thank you for your time tonight, Dan. And we can now entertain a motion that the Committee of Adjustment does adjourn at 8:05 p.m. and that Council resumes the regular meeting of Council. Councillor Cates and Councillor Arts, thank you. And we have no notices of motion. We have one correspondence item, and I don't see any hands. So the motion before us is that the correspondence item 11.1 be received as information. Mover, please, and a seconder. Councillor Shipley and Councillor Scott, all in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. And County Council update.
County Council on Tuesday. That was actually the last council meeting for the current warden, as the new warden will be elected on October the 2nd. So that was the last council meeting for our current warden. December, yeah, 2nd. This next one is probably Councillor Shipley asked about this not too long ago, the offload nurse agreement. The contract has been renewed from April 2021 to March 2022. There is more priority being put on keeping that nurse in place to try to help offset the offload delays. It's not saying that she won't be pulled out of there, but they're trying very hard to, only as a last resort will she be taken out of that position. Middlesex County, as many of you know, has a couple of bus routes. One route runs through Oxford County and through Thorndale to London. The second route is from Dorchester to London. There's another one that runs from Dorchester to Thorndale to Masonville, and they're going to increase it till a Saturday run also. As of right now, there's lower ridership than they had hoped for. There's not as many people riding the buses that they had hoped for, but they're still optimistic that as COVID continues to leave us, we can get through it more, that ridership will increase. That's the plan anyways, because they're looking at adding another route that could go to Nilestown and into London and winds up at Argyle Mall. So they're looking at all this, looking at new things, electronic payments, an on-demand center, so that people can call in and say, I'm going to be at this location. Can I get picked up? So they're looking at all different things, electronic payment options, and just whatever they can do to try to enhance the service. Their most popular stop was at Fanshawe College. A lot of students riding the bus and getting off at Fanshawe College. They had about 100 people ride the bus in October. So it's there, but it's not, as I said, not running as high as they had hoped it would. The Ontario government is continuing the funding for the program, $1.5 million through 2023 for administration costs, surveys, and determining what else they can do. The budget timetable for the county starts January 17th to February 18th, and March the 8th, the budget will come to council and hopefully be passed by early April. We had a first in the county. Councillor Vanderhayden attended the meeting virtually in an airplane. The plane took off as the meeting started, and she was connected as the plane was in flight. So that was the first for the county to have someone attend the meeting while riding an aircraft. Thank you.
You can literally Zoom anywhere. Yeah. Okay, any questions for the Deputy Mayor? Yeah.
Through you, Madam Mayor. I'm just curious of you said a lot of Fanshawe. I'm just curious where they come from, all over. So all of those you didn't know. Oh. Nice, thank you.
And if I'm not mistaken, the two stops there are Thorndale and Dorchester. I imagine the most of the people from those areas are the ones they get picked up on the way. Yeah, but I don't know that for sure. Yeah. Any other questions? Okay, hearing none, then we have bylaws. The motion before us is that the bylaws 2021 number 107 through 109 be adopted as printed. To 111 to 11. Yeah, I was going to say we've got 5 here. Okay, so we have a couple extra. Right, those were added. So the DFH one is number 4, and the final is a confirming. Okay, so they're printed before you. Is there a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Cates and Councillor Heffernan, all in favor? And that carries. And finally, our adjourning by motion is that Council for the Municipality of Middlesex Centre adjourns the November 24th, 2021 council meeting at 8:12 p.m. Mover, please. Councillor Scott and Councillor Heffernan, all in favor? And that is carried. Thank you, everyone. It's been a lot of thinking, talking, and discussing today. Thank you for your time, and take the rest of the night off.